Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 81, The Power of 8 Consecutive Wins. However, he was surrounded by nearly 30 enforcement palace disciples. In an instant, all kinds of attacks were launched at Lu Ming. There was no way to dodge. Bloodline explosion. Lu Ming did not hesitate and immediately activated his blood meridian. Lu Ming's blood meridian exploded and his combat strength increased by a large margin. He directly ignored most of the attacks. As long as he avoided the physical attacks of the long sword and the saber, he would be fine. Boom. 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 Streams of sword chi, saber chi, and fist force all landed on Lu Ming's body. However, Lu Ming's body only swayed slightly, and he continued to slash out with the star sword. The lustrous sword technique was extremely fast, and he slashed dozens of times in an instant. Screams rang out continuously as 7 to 8 figures were sent flying. All of them were heavily injured and fell to the ground. Lu Ming was in a frenzy. The essential chi in his body was so condensed that it was almost tangible, and it burst out continuously. His blood meridian level was currently at level 4, and the time for his blood meridian to burst out was only 5 breaths. In these 5 breaths, he was extremely powerful. The heavenly star sword kept slashing out, and the screams continued. One figure after another kept flying out. The disciples of the Tribunal Council were like sandbags as they fell to the ground one after another. The surrounding disciples of the 4 courtyards were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. Monster, monster, isn't Lu Ming too powerful? How long has he been in the sect? And did you guys see that? He actually ignored the attacks. He must have some kind of defensive treasure on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand so many attacks. That's right. There must be a defensive treasure. Lu Ming is actually not that powerful. He relied on the defensive treasure to catch the law enforcement hall off guard. Look, he's injured. The senior disciples of the 4 courtyards were in a heated discussion. Although they felt that Lu Ming must have relied on a defensive treasure, their eyes were still filled with shock. Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood. 5 breaths had passed, and more than 20 enforcement palace's disciples had been severely injured by him. They were no longer able to fight. However, he had taken so many attacks head-on. Even though he had devoured half of the attacks, he was still injured. He's injured, kill him. The remaining enforcement hall disciples roared and continued to pounce on Lu Ming. A tall and thin young man exchanged a blow with Lu Ming. Lu Ming trembled and could not help but take a step back. 9th grade Master Realm. Finally, a 9th grade Master Realm expert from the Tribunal Council made his move. As soon as Lu Ming retreated, the rest of the people rushed forward. During this entire process, Yao Tianyu had no intention of making a move. He continued to stand at the side, watching coldly. It seemed that Lu Ming was not worthy of him to take action personally. Beside Yao Tianyu, there was another young man. He was as strong as an iron tower, but he did not make a move either. So what if you're a 9th grade Master Realm? Kill. Lu Ming attacked more than 10 times in a row, forcing the others to retreat. Then, he fought with the 9th grade Master Realm expert. In an instant, the two exchanged more than a dozen moves. 10. Thump. After a dozen moves, the 9th grade Master Realm youth's expression changed drastically and he retreated a dozen steps. Lu Ming took a step forward and rushed toward the red-robed young man. Now, it's your turn. Lu Ming's eyes were cold and murderous. The red-robed youth was scared out of his wits. So many Tribunal Council experts and they could not stop Lu Ming? How was this possible? Senior brother Yao, save me. He couldn't help but shout. Yao Tianyu frowned and said, Tai, Attack. The iron tower-like young man behind him responded, and then he stomped on the ground. The ground shook, and the hard floor cracked. The iron tower youth's body was shot out like a cannonball. Fast, extremely fast. He was even faster than Lu Ming when he used the dragon serpent steps. He was near Lu Ming in an instant. He threw a punch, and the violent fist force surged toward Lu Ming. So strong. Lu Ming's heart trembled. The iron tower young man's punch gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Without any hesitation, he used all his true chi and slashed at the iron tower young man. The iron tower young man's fist heavily hit the star sword. In that instant, Lu Ming felt as if he had been hit by a huge mountain. The force was unstoppable. Lu Ming's body shook violently and he was sent flying. Lu Ming flew more than 10 meters before landing on the ground. Then, he took 8 steps back. With each step, the floor cracked and rumbled. After 8 steps, Lu Ming finally stopped and spat out a mouthful of blood. He Tai, it's He Tai who made a move. He Tai is a genius expert who won 8 consecutive victories on the bronze platform. He's not far from the bronze ranking. With him, Lu Ming is doomed this time. That's right. Lu Ming and He Tai are too different. Seeing the Iron Tower youth's attack, someone cried out in shock. 8 consecutive wins on the bronze platform. It is indeed powerful. Lu Ming looked at He Tai, who was in front of him, with a grave expression. If the disciples of the mystical sword sect wanted to enter the bronze ranking, they had to go up to the bronze platform and accept challenges. Only those who won 10 consecutive rounds could be ranked on the bronze list. He Tai, on the other hand, had already won 8 matches in a row. He only needed to win 2 more times in a row before he could enter the bronze rank. Of course, it wasn't that easy, because the further one went, the more difficult it would be, and the stronger the people they would meet. But 8 consecutive wins, his strength was also very strong. It's not bad that you can take a punch from me, but I advise you to surrender. You and I are far apart. He Tai said indifferently. Haha, if you want to fight, then fight. You want me to surrender without putting up a fight? Impossible. Lu Ming wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and laughed. You're so stubborn. He Tai charged at Lu Ming and threw another punch. This punch was even more powerful than the previous one. Lu Ming's pupils constricted. He did not take the attack head-on. Instead, he used the dragon serpent steps and dodged to the side. You can't avoid it? He Tai stomped on the ground heavily, causing the floor to crack. He was like a wild beast, charging towards Lu Ming. He threw another punch. It was extremely fast. He could not avoid this punch. If he couldn't avoid it, then he would take it head-on. Lu Ming circulated the true war dragon technique to the extreme. His essential chi surged wildly as he slashed out. The heavenly star sword and He Tai's fist collided once again. Lu Ming's sword aura was defeated in an instant. The difference was too great. They were not even on the same level. He Tai's combat strength was too strong. Although he was also a 9th grade master, ordinary 9th grade master realm cultivators were trash in front of him. He could defeat them with a single punch. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, he could definitely fight an ordinary 9th grade master realm expert without activating his blood meridian. However, he was still far from He Tai. Lu Ming was sent flying backward. He slid for dozens of meters before he stopped. Lu Ming spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale and his body was staggering as if he could fall down at any moment. Is this the strength of a true genius of the mystical sword sect? It's really powerful. Lu Ming secretly sighed. Chapter 82, Persistent Battle. During the newbie trial, he had defeated all the other geniuses and won the newbie king title. At that time, he thought that the other geniuses were only so-so, but now that he thought about it, he was wrong. The other geniuses among the newcomers weren't too weak. They were just too young and immature. They just hadn't matured yet. Perhaps in a few years, some people would also grow to be very powerful. Capture him. He Tai waved his hand and said. Lu Ming was already seriously injured. He did not need to do anything. Let's see how you're going to resist now. The remaining dozen or so enforcement hall disciples walked toward Lu Ming with ferocious looks on their faces. Lu Ming had injured more than 20 of them. They were both fearful and hateful of Lu Ming. Lu Ming supported himself with his long sword. He scanned his surroundings and sneered. What are you laughing at? You'll get it when we get to the law enforcement palace. A skinny monkey-like young man laughed hideously and clawed at Lu Ming's head. He wanted to press Lu Ming's head to the ground and humiliate him. But dash! A sword light flashed, and a few streams of blood shot out. There were 5 fingers in the blood. Skinny Monkey looked at his bare palm in a daze, then let out a heart-wrenching scream. Ah, my finger! Lu Ming, I want you to die. Of course, Lu Ming was the one who slashed her just now. Go, let's attack together. The others roared. There were 10 of them, including a 9th-grade Master Realm expert. One attack after another was directed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised his essential chi with great effort and waved his sword to block the attack. After a few consecutive moves, Lu Ming's body kept retreating. With a swish, he was struck by a sword and blood immediately flowed out. Lu Ming, lie down and surrender. A young man from the tribunal council shouted. In your dreams. The only response they got was 2 simple words. Then I'll beat you until you lie down. Whoosh whoosh. The attacks continued to surge toward Lu Ming. These tribunal council disciples were all experts. At this time, Lu Ming was severely injured and it was difficult for him to withstand the attacks. After a few moves, a few more wounds appeared on his body and blood flowed out. Lu Ming's entire body was stained red with blood. His steps were light and he seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. However, he still stood tall and straight. His eyes were still firm and persistent. At this moment, the entire place was silent, and the air seemed to have frozen at this moment. No one spoke as they stared at the figure in a daze. Senior brother Lu Ming. The new Vermilion Bird Hall disciples clenched their fists and their eyes turned red. Their eyes were filled with guilt. They felt guilty for not standing up for them earlier. They all knew that the reason why Lu Ming came here and tore down the Star Moon Tower was to avenge Pang Shi. For his friends, for his brothers, to be able to do this, this was a true man, a true man. Compared to Lu Ming, they felt that they were too inferior. Stop, stop. The skinny youth roared and suddenly charged forward. The red-robed young man suddenly rushed out and slapped the thin young man, sending him flying. He said arrogantly, "Get lost, you'll get it later." Then, he looked at Lu Ming and laughed. Lu Ming, weren't you very arrogant just now? Why? Now I can't, I don't have any strength. Come and hit me, haha. As soon as the red-robed young man finished speaking, he was slapped hard on the face. This slap was extremely loud and extremely ruthless. The red-robed young man's body spun a few times before coming to a stop. One side of his face was almost smashed, and blood was spurting out of his teeth. He was so stunned that he even forgot to scream. He looked at the person who hit him in a daze. It was a woman, an extremely alluring and sexy woman with an extremely good figure. However, her expression was extremely cold. Mulan. A name flashed through the red-robed youth's mind. Mulan had finally arrived. No one could see how she had arrived. Since you're asking for a beating, I'll definitely fulfill your wish. Ian's cold voice was heard. She then waved her hand. Another slap landed on the other side of the red-robed young man's face. Blood was still spurting out because all the teeth had been spat out. The red-robed young man did not fly out. He was pulled by a force and spun a dozen times on the spot before he stopped. It was clear how powerful the slap was. The moment he stopped, he saw Mu Ian's cold face again. His heart trembled and he almost peed his pants. He shouted, "Fu, not, xiao, want, ah." His mouth was leaking air, and he couldn't even speak clearly. Mulan kicked the red-robed young man and sent him flying more than 10 meters. He screamed and fainted. Not far away, Yao Tianyu, who had been very calm all this while, was no longer calm. He looked at Mulan with a grave expression. The people from the law enforcement hall did not dare to make a move either. They looked at Mulan with a grave expression. Mulan did not even look at the others. She walked to Lu Ming's side and said with a concerned expression, "Are you all right?" "It's fine, I won't die yet. I owe you another favor this time. You can still smile, quickly take this pill." Mulan took out a pill and passed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not stand on ceremony. He took it and swallowed it in one mouthful. The pill melted in his mouth and turned into waves of energy that permeated Lu Ming's entire body. His wound quickly stopped bleeding. Such a strong medicinal effect. This healing medicinal pill's grade was definitely not low. At this moment, Mulan turned to Yao Tianyu and said coldly, "You're good, you dare to attack the Vermilion Bird Hall's disciples." "Elder Mulan." Yao Tianyu's expression turned ugly. He cupped his fists and said, "Elder Mulan, we're enforcing the law impartially." Lu Ming relied on his high cultivation base to injure dozens of people from the Star Moon Tower for no reason. He even forcefully demolished the Star Moon Tower. Of course, the law enforcement hall has to severely punish such an unruly and reckless disciple. But Lu Ming is insane. Not only did he resist arrest, but he also injured so many people from the law enforcement hall. "Elder Mulan, as the chief elder of the Vermilion Bird Hall, I hope you won't shield him." "Nonsense." The skinny youth's face was swollen after being slapped by the red-robed youth. He walked out resolutely and said, "It's obvious that the Star Moon Tower forcefully bought the materials for the Vermilion Bird Hall's new apprentices. They even beat people up. Senior brother Lu Ming is fighting for us and seeking justice. How is this against the sect rules?" "That's right, senior brother Lu Ming is seeking justice for us." A few more new Vermilion Bird Hall disciples walked out. With Mu Ian's arrival, they were emboldened and couldn't hold it in any longer, so they told the truth. "You're talking nonsense. How could the Star Moon Tower do such a thing?" Yao Tianyu asked in a low voice. "If they did, the Tribunal Council would have punished them long ago. Moreover, you said that you only bought the Vermilion Bird Hall by force. That's even more ridiculous. Does the Star Moon Tower have any enmity with the Vermilion Bird Hall? I think it's obvious that the few of you are in cahoots with Lu Ming. You want to frame the Star Moon Tower." Chapter 83, Chapter 83 Not Qualified? No, we're just telling the truth," the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples quickly explained. "All right, I'm done." Mulan waved her hand, then looked at Yao Tianyu and said, "Now, I'll tell you clearly. I don't care who Lu Ming hit or whose house he demolished. I don't care about all these. If I say that Lu Ming is innocent, he is innocent. If I say he's not guilty, he's not guilty. So domineering, so overbearing." This was Mulan. She was completely unreasonable when she was domineering. Instantly, Yao Tianyu's face turned red and he almost suffered internal injuries. Mulan didn't play by the rules at all, yet he couldn't do anything to her. "Elder Mulan, even though you're an elder of the Vermilion Bird Hall and the granddaughter of Dean Yan, you can't just use your power to bully others, can you? There are so many disciples here watching." After holding it in for a long time, Yao Tianyu finally managed to squeeze out this sentence. "I'm just bullying people, so what?" Mulan replied indifferently. Yao Tianyu trembled in anger. Good. If that's the case, I'll report this to the elders of the Tribunal Council. Let's go. Mu Ian's arrival was extremely domineering. Yao Tianyu knew that it was impossible to take down Lu Ming today. After leaving behind a harsh sentence, he turned around and left. Who said you can leave? Mu Ian's cold voice was heard. Yao Tianyu's figure paused. He looked at Mulan and gritted his teeth. Elder Mulan, what's your order? You injured him and want to leave just like that, isn't that too easy? Leave behind the medical expenses? I think it will take at least 1 or 2 million taels of silver to fully recover from this kind of injury. Mu Ian's gaze wandered all over Lu Ming as she said slowly. Medical expenses? 1 or 2 million taels. All around, the onlookers were stunned. Some of them dug their ears hard, thinking that they had heard wrong. Even Lu Ming was in a daze. Mulan was asking for an exorbitant price. As expected, Yao Tianyu couldn't hold it in any longer and roared, medical expenses. Mulan, don't go too far. Lu Ming injured so many of our people? I didn't even ask him for medical fees, and you're asking me for it? Impossible, I'm telling you, it's impossible. Injured your people? They deserve it. Let me tell you, if you don't pay for the medical expenses today, I don't mind breaking your bones one by one. Mulan said coldly. He was too domineering and overbearing. He did not give Yao Tianyu any face at all. No, it was not that he did not give Yao Tianyu any face, but he did not put him in his eyes at all. Yao Tianyu's expression was extremely ugly. Although he was a genius on the bronze rank, he was only a bronze disciple. If he were to fight Mulan, he would definitely be killed with a single slap. His face turned green and white. If he were to give in today and pay for the medical expenses, he would really lose all his face. Haha, niece Mulan, in my opinion, let's just drop this matter. At this moment, a deep voice was heard. A figure descended from the sky. It was an old man in his 60s. He was wearing a silver robe and had a kind smile on his face. He was a silver-robed elder. Upon seeing the old man, Yao Tianyu was overjoyed and shouted, Elder Ming, you must seek justice for this disciple. Elder Mulan has gone too far. This silver-robed elder was from the Azure Dragon Hall. Mu Ian's expression darkened as well. She said, Old man Ming, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. The people in the surroundings were dumbfounded again. Mulan was too awesome, wasn't she? She called a silver-robed elder an old man. However, Elder Ming did not show any signs of anger. He still smiled and said, I have already heard about the entire incident. I think that there is a huge misunderstanding. According to my speculation, the Star Moon Tower is the one who is in the wrong. The Star Moon Tower forcefully bought their disciples' materials. Lu Ming fought for justice and injured their disciples. As members of the enforcement hall, Yao Tianyu and the rest naturally had to question Lu Ming when they saw him injuring someone. This caused a fight. This is a complete misunderstanding. Since both parties have people injured, I think we should just let this matter go. Lu Ming's heart trembled. Elder Ming was sacrificing the war chariot to protect the general. This Elder Ming looked kind, but in fact, he was a cunning old fox. He pushed all the blame to the Star Moon Tower with just one sentence. In this way, Yao Tianyu would not have to pay for the medical expenses, and Yao Tianyu and the others would have nothing to say to the elder of the Tribunal Council. Yao Tianyu's face darkened, but he did not say anything. If this matter was really investigated, it would be impossible to hide the fact that the Star Moon Tower had forcefully bought the materials for the Vermilion Bird Hall's new disciples. Therefore, it would be good if they could push the blame on the Star Moon Tower. Mu Ian's eyes flickered. This Elder Ming was a silver-robed elder. If he was bent on protecting Yao Tianyu, she would be helpless. Oh? Since it's the Star Moon Tower's fault, they must be severely punished. Otherwise, the disciples of the four courtyards will not be convinced. Mu Ian's eyes flickered before she smiled. Of course. The Star Moon Tower will definitely punish them severely. All the materials will also be returned. Elder Ming smiled, then said to Yao Tianyu, Tianyu, why haven't you brought the disciples of the Tribunal Council back to recuperate yet? Yao Tianyu cupped his fists and ordered the uninjured disciples to help the injured disciples back to their rooms. Then, Yao Tianyu cast a cold glance at Lu Ming, turned around, and left. Yao Tianyu. Lu Ming suddenly called out. Yao Tianyu stopped in his tracks. He turned around and glared at Lu Ming coldly. Lu Ming's eyes glowed as he stared at Yao Tianyu. Yao Tianyu, what kind of skill do you have to call these minions to attack me? I'm challenging you right now. Do you dare to accept my challenge? As soon as he said that, the entire place fell into silence. Lu Ming actually challenged Yao Tianyu? How was that possible? How could he be a match for Yao Tianyu? You want to challenge me? Yao Tianyu retorted. Not bad, yes. Lu Ming replied firmly. Yao Tianyu's lips curled into a mocking smile as he said disdainfully, Lu Ming, I'm a disciple on the bronze ranking. What right do you have to challenge me? You can challenge me after you've made it to the bronze rank. You're not qualified to do so now. Yao Tianyu's eyes were filled with arrogance and disdain. With that, he turned around and left. Are you disdainful to accept my challenge? Lu Ming could not help but clench his fists. Lu Ming, don't think too much about it. This is the rule of the mystical sword sect. If you want to challenge a disciple on the bronze list, you must be on the bronze list as well. Only then will you be qualified. Otherwise, you don't have the right to challenge them. Seeing this, Mulan started explaining to Lu Ming. I see. Lu Ming muttered. However, Yao Tianyu's condescending and disdainful look just now could not be removed from Lu Ming's mind. The bronze ranking? I'll get there soon. Yao Tianyu, just you wait. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly, his eyes filled with determination. Lu Ming, are you all right? Lu Ming, how are you? Only then did Feng Wu and Hua Qi arrive, panting. Chapter 84, Healing. I'm fine. However, the two of them still looked at Lu Ming in shock. This was because Lu Ming was completely drenched in blood. He looked like a man made of blood. Hua Qi, in particular, had a complicated look in his eyes besides shock. He was touched and admired. By the way, how's Pang Shi? Lu Ming asked with some worry. He's fine. The alchemist has already set his bones back and fed him some healing pills. He should be fine. Hua Qi said. That's good. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Suddenly, his body swayed and his face turned pale. Lu Ming, what's wrong? Mulan, Feng Wu, and Hua Qi were all shocked. It seems that I have to recuperate on the spot, Lu Ming smiled bitterly. Lu Ming immediately sat cross-legged and circulated the true war dragon technique to begin healing. Detestable. Hua Qi growled. Lu Ming could not even go back to recuperate, which showed the severity of his injuries. After that, Hua Qi, Feng Wu, and Mulan all stood close to Lu Ming to protect him. The surrounding onlookers watched for a while before leaving. The news of this battle spread like wildfire throughout the entire mystical sword section. After hearing this news, everyone had different reactions. Some people scoffed and thought that Lu Ming was a reckless man who did things impulsively and did not care about the consequences. It was unwise to fight even though he knew that he was no match. However, some people were full of praise for Lu Ming. They felt that Lu Ming was loyal, had a firm path of martial arts, and had an indomitable will to advance bravely. On the path of martial arts, one should be fearless and attack when needed. If one had to look around, even be afraid of the slightest thing, and swallow one's anger, then what was the point of practicing martial arts and cultivation? Anyway, There were all kinds of theories. Of course, Lu Ming was unaware of this. He was fully focused on healing his injuries. The healing process took 6 hours. When Lu Ming opened his eyes, it was already evening. Lu Ming, are you feeling better? Mulan was the first to notice that Lu Ming had woken up. She asked hurriedly. Much better. After 12 hours of healing, his injuries had basically stabilized. As long as he could hold on for a while, he would be completely healed. Feng Wu and Hua Qi hurried to Lu Ming's side. Lu Ming's heart was filled with warmth. He knew that while he was recuperating, the few of them had been by his side. However, there was a skinny youth who didn't leave either. He was watching from a distance. Let's go back. Then, he walked to the skinny youth and asked, What's your name? Lu, senior brother Lu, I'm Li Yi. The skinny youth said excitedly. Li Yi. Thank you for this. No, senior brother Lu Ming, I should be the one thanking you. Li Yi said hurriedly. Let's go back to the Vermilion Bird Hall together. The few of them headed toward the Vermilion Bird Hall. Not long after, Lu Ming and the rest had returned to the dormitory. After Lu Ming returned, he did not return to his room. Instead, he walked into Pang Shi's room. Pang Shi was lying on the bed, his entire body wrapped in bandages. His legs and arms were also in casts. At this moment, Pang Shi had already woken up. When he saw Lu Ming entering, he struggled to get up and shouted, Senior brother Lu Ming, are you all right? Don't move, just lie down and rest. Lu Ming hurriedly stopped Pang Shi from moving and smiled. Don't worry, I'm fine. Senior brother Lu Ming, I'm sorry. It's all my fault that you're so badly injured. Pang Shi said with tears in his eyes. He had heard about Lu Ming's battle. After all, it had been more than 6 hours. I should be the one saying sorry. Yao Tianyu and the others' target is me, but they implicated you. No, it's not Senior Lu Ming's fault. It's all my fault for being too weak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have implicated you, Senior Lu Ming. Pang Shi said. His eyes were filled with self-blame and determination. All right, Big Rock, don't think too much. Have a good rest. Lu Ming smiled and patted Pang Shi. He then walked out of Pang Shi's room. After returning to his room, Lu Ming entered the Supreme Shrine. The armor of the red-scaled snake is so broken. He took off all his clothes and looked at the tattered red-scaled snake armor in his hands. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. This time, if he didn't have the red-scaled snake armor as a layer of protection, he would have been more seriously injured. After changing into a new set of clothes, Lu Ming went out to fetch some water to wash his body clean. He then returned to the Supreme Shrine and continued to channel his energy to heal his injuries. Time flew by, and 7 days quickly passed. 7 days later, Lu Ming practiced a set of fist techniques in the courtyard and exercised his muscles and bones. After 7 days, my injuries have healed. Lu Ming sensed it and thought to himself. His eyes flashed with joy. He realized that the true chi cultivated from the true war dragon technique was not only rich and condensed, but it also had a very good healing effect. An ordinary person would need at least a month to recover from such an injury. However, he only used 7 days. A god-grade cultivation technique was indeed very useful. Just then, the door was pushed open and Feng Wu walked in. Lu Ming, how's your recovery? I've brought you some medicinal wine, do you want to try it? Feng Wu smiled brightly. I've already recovered. Ah! The smile froze on Feng Wu's face. She looked at Lu Ming as if he was a monster. It's only been 7 days, and you've already recovered. Yeah, what's so strange about that? Don't you know that I'm a genius? Lu Ming waved his hand, and it cut through the air with a loud whistling sound. He then looked at Feng Wu with a smug face. Genius? How can a genius be beaten up like this? Feng Wu pursed her lips in disdain, but there was still shock in her eyes. He recovered in 7 days, what a monster! By the way, Feng Wu, can you tell me more about the bronze list? How strong are the geniuses on the bronze list? The bronze ranking? He's very strong. Feng Wu's face turned grim at the mention of the bronze list. As you know, you have to win 10 matches in a row on the bronze platform before you can be ranked on the bronze list. It's not easy to win 10 matches in a row. The higher you go, the more difficult it will be. For example, after you win 8 matches in a row, you will have to face an opponent who has also won 8 matches in a row in the 9th match. After winning 9 matches in a row, you will have to face an opponent who has also won 9 matches in a row. Therefore, it is really difficult to win 10 matches in a row. That's why the geniuses on the bronze list are all extremely powerful. They can defeat warriors of the same level with one move as easily as eating and drinking. I heard that most of the geniuses on the bronze list have successfully cultivated at least one black level low rank martial technique. Even if they didn't successfully cultivate a black level martial arts technique, they would have mastered some secret technique, and some might even have cultivated the path of body refinement. Feng Wu explained in detail. Chapter 85, Practicing the Spear with the Waterfall. How many people are on the bronze list? 56 people, excluding the Kylin Hall. There are a total of 56 geniuses from the 4 halls who have made it onto the bronze list. Feng Wu said. Only 56 people. The mystical sword sect would recruit a batch of disciples every year, and as long as they were not over 30 years old, they would be considered as disciples. After so many years, the mystical sword sect had more than 50,000 bronze disciples. There were more than 50,000 people, but only 56 of them were geniuses on the bronze list. One had to know that those who could join the mystical sword sect had to go through a series of examinations. It was a sign of talent, and 1 in 100 was chosen. It was obvious how talented the geniuses on the bronze list were. What's Yao Tianyu's ranking? 51 St. Feng Wu's eyes flickered as she scrutinized Lu Ming. You're not really thinking of challenging Yao Tianyu, are you? He joined the mystical sword sect 2 years ago, and I heard that he was a strong contender for the newcomer king during the newcomer's trial. Although he failed, his talent cannot be underestimated. Although he's ranked 51st, his abilities have improved very quickly. I believe that he'll continue to rise. Lu Ming, it won't be a problem for you to defeat him in another year. But it's still too early this year. Feng Wu, since you don't trust me that much, how about we make a bet? I'll bet on whether I can defeat Yao Tianyu in 4 months. Oh? What are we betting on? Feng Wu said. What are we betting on? Let me think. Lu Ming touched his chin. Then, his eyes wandered all over Feng Wu's body. From time to time, he would even let out a sigh. Feng Wu's pretty face turned red. She glared at Lu Ming and shouted, Lu Ming, you're shameless, don't even think about it. Feng Wu, why are you scolding me? I just wanted to bet on a big meal to see if you have that much money. You see, my thoughts are not pure, right? Lu Ming looked surprised. Feng Wu's face turned even redder, all the way to her ears. She glared at Lu Ming and said fiercely, Fine, I'll take the bet. If I don't rip you off, my name isn't Feng Wu. Having said that, he threw a jar of medicinal wine at Lu Ming and left in a huff. Lu Ming laughed heartily. It was quite interesting to tease the beauty Feng Wu occasionally. He opened the wine jar and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Lu Ming began to consider his future cultivation path. It's too slow to cultivate the basic gun technique like this. If this continues, I don't know when I'll be able to cultivate the fire-controlling gun technique. I need to use external forces to speed up the cultivation of the basic gun technique. If one wanted to be on the bronze list, he had to master a profound level martial arts technique. There it is. Lu Ming was deep in thought when his eyes suddenly lit up. Immediately, he gulped down the entire jar of medicinal wine. It's really good wine, but it's a pity that it has a medicinal smell and lacks a lot of flavor. Lu Ming clicked his tongue and walked out. The first place he went to was the contribution hall. He exchanged the 2 million taels of silver for contribution points, so he had a total of 20,000 contribution points. He only had a few 100,000 silver on him. In addition to his previous contribution points, he had a total of 25500 contribution points. Then, he started to exchange for the demonic beast blood essence. He was going to exchange for the blood essence of a class 8 LV2 demonic beast. A portion of 8th grade 2nd level demonic beast blood essence was worth 800 contribution points. Lu Ming exchanged for 20 sets, which cost him 16,000 contribution points. It was too expensive. Lu Ming's heart twitched a few times. He had wanted to exchange for some class 9 LV2 demonic beast blood essence, but it cost 1600 contribution points per portion. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He could only put it aside for the time being. After exchanging for the demonic beast blood essence, Lu Ming left the mystical sword sect and headed east. The layout of the mystical sword sect was rather peculiar. The 4 halls occupied the 4 most majestic mountains in the north, south, east, and west. The central region was an even wider region. In this area, there was not only Kylan Hall, but also the Hall of Mission, the Hall of Contribution, the Bronze Platform, and other important places in the mystical sword section. Further north of the Onyx Tortoise Hall was the core area of the mystical sword sect. The sect leader, golden-robed elders, golden-ranked disciples, and a portion of silver-robed elders were all cultivating in this area. It was the core of the mystical sword sect's power. The east side of the Azure Dragon Hall was connected to a vast mountain range. This mountain range was known as the Coastal Mountain Range. It was vast and boundless, and countless demonic beasts lived in it. It was said that beyond the mountain range by the sea was the Endless Sea. It could be said that the Blazing Sun Empire was at the easternmost part of the entire Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming wanted to go to the mountain range by the sea. He wanted to look for an advantageous position to cultivate his spear technique. It was impossible for Lu Ming to go deep into the mountain range along the coast. He was only at the periphery. 2 days later, Lu Ming was about 200 miles deep. A waterfall rumbled. The water fell from a height of more than 1,000 meters, forming a huge impact that shook everything within a few hundred meters. This is the place. I'll use this waterfall to cultivate. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Then, Lu Ming took out his fire-patterned gun and walked slowly toward the waterfall from the side. The silver water column fell from a height of over 1,000 meters, and its momentum was extremely shocking. The closer they got, the more they could feel the majestic power. To practice the spear, the first step is to practice spear wielding. Only when you hold the spear steadily will you be able to grasp the other basic spear techniques. Then, Lu Ming grabbed the end of the spear with one hand, stretched his hand straight, and extended the body of the spear into the waterfall. The moment the body of the spear was washed by the water from the waterfall, Lu Ming felt an extremely strong pressure pressing on the body of the spear. He bent his wrist and threw the long spear down. With a burst of true qi, he pulled the spear back with great force. What a strong force! It's not stable at all. However, this is also a good place to cultivate. Continue. Lu Ming's eyes were bright and determined. He continued to extend the spear, and true energy continued to flow into the spear. This time, he managed to hold on for 2 more breaths before the spear was thrown down by the waterfall. Continue. Lu Ming was not discouraged. He started to cultivate again and again. Lu Ming realized that cultivating the way he held the spear consumed a terrifying amount of essential qi. Every once in a while, Lu Ming would have to stand aside and circulate the true War Dragon technique to recover his essential qi. Of course, there were also benefits to this. Every time his genuine qi was squeezed dry, he would cultivate and replenish it. This would make his genuine chi more condensed and his foundation more stable. During this period, Lu Ming would occasionally devour and refine a portion of demonic beast blood essence. His cultivation level was rapidly improving. 7 days later, Lu Ming could already hold the spear for more than 10 minutes in the waterfall. However, it was very unstable and the long spear swayed back and forth in the water. However, this was already a huge improvement. For another 7 days, the long spear in the waterfall was stable. No matter how the water of the waterfall hit it, the long spear did not move at all. Chapter 86, Southern Ridge Fire Field. At this stage, Lu Ming cultivated the basic spear technique and made rapid progress. His thrust was as steady as a mountain, and he could even stab a fly in the air. On the third 7 days, Lu Ming even tied a stone weighing 100 catties to the tip of the spear. Carrying the 100-pound stone, Lu Ming practiced spear wielding in the waterfall. Just like that, a month passed. After a month of hard work, Lu Ming had finally cultivated the basic spear technique to an extremely profound level. He held the spear in his hand and stood still like a mountain. After a month of excruciating cultivation and refining all 20 portions of demonic beast blood essence, Lu Ming's cultivation level had improved at an amazing speed. He had already reached the peak of the 7th grade master realm, and he wasn't far from the 8th grade master realm. As the 20 portions of blood essence were devoured and refined in a month, Lu Ming's cultivation level was very stable. Now, I can start to practice the fire gun art. Lu Ming entered the Supreme Shrine, took out the fire gun controlling art and began to read it carefully. The fire gun skill was a fire attribute gun skill and was divided into 6 moves. Fire dance of the fire gun art, broken armor, moon pull, lightning chase, landslide, explosion. Of the 6 moves, other than the move of explosion, the other 5 moves did not have any difference in strength. The only difference was in the way the spear was used. The only difference was in the degree of maturity and comprehension. After observing it carefully, Lu Ming began to cultivate. At the end of the stairs, there was a faintly discernible palace. The sound of chanting continuously rang out, clearing Lu Ming's mind. He quickly comprehended the martial arts technique. And NBSP, buzz. The sound of the spear piercing through the air, as well as the vibration of the spear itself, resounded throughout the Supreme Shrine. He cultivated like this for half a month. In the forest, Lu Ming's figure moved unhindered. The fire-patterned spear danced in his hands, like a fire dragon rolling. Lu Ming suddenly thrust his spear. Fire gun art broken armor. The long spear pierced through the air with unparalleled speed, like a bolt of lightning, stabbing towards a 2-meter-tall boulder. At the tip of the spear, a spinning cutting force was produced. The huge rock was pierced through by the fire-patterned spear like it was tofu. Fire gun art mountain crash. And NBSP, suddenly, the fire-patterned spear shook, and the body of the spear flickered, creating a vibrating force. The huge rock exploded right in the middle, sending debris flying. I've finally reached the first level of the fire gun art. I've just gotten a glimpse of it. Lu Ming's face was filled with joy. As expected of a black-grade low-level martial arts technique, it was extremely powerful. Lu Ming felt that its power had already surpassed the lustrous sword technique even though he had only cultivated the first stage. After all, the lustrous sword technique had been stuck at the 5th level, and it was difficult to break through. The first level of the fire gun technique was equivalent to the 6th level of the lustrous sword technique. Generally speaking, it was very difficult to successfully cultivate a black-level martial skill without the cultivation of a great martial master. For example, the Zhou family's patriarch, Zhou Bing, had only managed to cultivate to the first level after decades of cultivation. Lu Ming, on the other hand, had cultivated to the first level in just half a month. This was inseparable from the effect of the chanting. Of course, Without Lu Ming's hard work in cultivating the basic gun technique a month ago, it would be impossible for him to master the fire gun control technique so quickly. Then, he continued to cultivate. 7 days later, Lu Ming was sitting cross-legged on a green rock, frowning in deep thought. It's still lacking a little. It doesn't feel very smooth. After this period of cultivation, he realized that he was still a little bit short of comprehending the essence of the fire gun controlling art. If he cultivated in this way, even with the help of the chanting, the cultivation progress would not reach the level that Lu Ming was satisfied with. Maybe it's because of the environment. The fire gun art belongs to the fire attribute. I should go to a place full of fire attribute spiritual chi to cultivate, then I can be like a fish in water. That way, combined with the chanting sound, I can improve faster. Where's the fire attributed spiritual chi? Oh, right, the Southern Ridge fire field. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he thought of a place. The Southern Ridge fire field was in the southwest of the mystical sword sect. It was an area where volcanoes erupted. The volcanoes covered a radius of 1,000 miles, and it was filled with flames and fire-type spiritual chi. It was perfect for him to practice the fire gun controlling art there. The key was that area not only had a large number of fire attribute demonic beasts, but it also produced a spiritual herb called flame crystal grass. Flame crystal grass was one of the precious materials required to cultivate the third stage of the true war dragon technique. This was a material that was more precious than the spirit condensing fruit and the blood mist rock. If he were to exchange for it at the mystical sword sect, Lu Ming estimated that it would cost at least 10 to 20,000 contribution points. Going to the Southridge fire field was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Lu Ming immediately returned to the mystical sword sect to visit Pang Shi. After such a long time, Pang Shi had already recovered and was even more diligent in his cultivation. Seeing that Pang Shi was fine, Lu Ming was relieved. He then exchanged some detox pills and essential chi recovery pills with his contribution points and headed to the Southridge fire field. On the way, Lu Ming caught a 4th grade 2nd level gale lion. The speed of the wind travel lion was extremely fast, much faster than the green scale horse. 5 days later, Lu Ming arrived at the Lingnan fire field. They could already feel waves of hot air blowing against their faces before they even entered the Southern Ridge fire field. After releasing the wind-walking lion, Lu Ming walked into the Southridge fire field. There were no volcanoes in the periphery of the Lingnan fire field. The ground was pitch black, like burnt rocks. Hot air was rising from the ground. Sometimes, a gas would rush out of the ground. It was extremely hot, and ordinary people would be scalded if they touched it. Not long after Lu Ming entered, he would occasionally see some figures. These people had a name: stone hunters. There were many volcanoes in the center of the Southern Ridge fire field. When these volcanoes erupted, they would spew out a type of ore called inferno stone. Inferno stone could be refined into inferno iron, and it was the best material for forging spirit weapons. However, those who would come here to pick up stones were usually itinerant cultivators with low cultivation, and there were even ordinary people. The Lingnan fire field was full of danger. The ground would spew out hot gases, lava, and flames from time to time. Even a martial arts master would be severely injured or even killed if he was hit by the flames. As for inferno ore, it was just an ore and wasn't expensive. Therefore, those with high cultivation rarely came here. Lu Ming did not stay long in the outer area. He wanted to go to the central region, where there were many fire-type demonic beasts and the fire-type spiritual chi was stronger. That was the place for cultivation. Very soon, Lu Ming passed through the outer area and arrived at the central area. In the central region, the air was even hotter, as if they were in a big steamer. The stones on the ground were all fiery red, and one could even hear a pop sound. Lu Ming looked around and could occasionally see lava gushing out of the ground. This area was even more dangerous, and almost no one came here. Lu Ming circulated his essential qi throughout his body to resist the heat from the outside world. At the same time, he was fully focused on observing the situation on the ground. This was to prevent them from being hit by the lava. Chapter 87, Disciple of the 10 Directions Sword School. He then walked in. After walking for about 10 miles, Lu Ming stopped. This was because a fierce tiger with red flames all over its body had appeared in front of him. The Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger was a Class 8 second-level demonic beast. It was a fire element demonic beast and usually lived in places with rich fire element spiritual qi. The Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger suddenly roared and opened its mouth. A pillar of fire spewed out of its mouth and blasted toward Lu Ming. Good. Lu Ming's eyes gleamed and he took out his fire-patterned gun. With a thrust of the spear, the spinning cutting force burst out and destroyed the pillar of fire spat out by the Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger. Then, Lu Ming charged at the Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger and smashed his spear at it. The long spear pressed down, emitting a violent whistling sound. The Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger seemed to sense danger. The fiery red fur on its body stood on end, and on its fur, there were scorching flames. These flames condensed into a huge fireball in the air and shot towards the fire-patterned spear, trying to block the attack. However, it was all in vain. The fire-patterned spear was unstoppable. With a slight shake, the fireball collapsed, and the fire-patterned spear continued to smash down. The spear hit the Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger's head, making a cracking sound. The Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger's forehead caved in. The Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger's huge body rolled back dozens of meters before it stopped. It was no longer breathing. Lu Ming walked over and controlled his blood meridian to suck out the Scarlet Flame Demonic Tiger's blood essence. Lu Ming would not miss the chance to obtain the blood essence of an 8th grade second-level demonic beast. In the mystical sword sect, it cost 800 contribution points. Circulating his spirit-devouring bloodline, it did not take long for him to devour and refine the Scarlet Flame Demon Tiger's blood essence. Lu Ming's cultivation had improved once again, but he was still a little lacking to break through to the 8th grade master realm. This place is rich in flame qi, I'll cultivate the fire lance technique here. Immediately, Lu Ming's mind sank into the fire gun control art and he began to cultivate. Shadows of the spear were everywhere, and the energy was surging. Lu Ming felt that his cultivation was extremely smooth. There was no obstruction when he circulated the spear technique. It was as if he was one with the surrounding environment. As expected, the environment had a great influence on the cultivation of battle techniques. Smooth, it's too smooth. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he was immersed in this feeling. Lu Ming only stopped after 6 hours of cultivation. Lu Ming panted heavily. Cultivating here required him to circulate his essential qi to protect his body at all times. He also had to observe his surroundings to see if there was any magma or flames rushing out. It was very taxing on his essential qi and mind. However, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with excitement. He had only cultivated for 6 hours and Lu Ming could feel that he had made great progress in the fire gun art. Lu Ming immediately retreated to the outer area to recover his essential qi. After his essential qi had recovered, Lu Ming entered the Supreme Shrine again. With the help of the chanting, he continued to comprehend the feeling of cultivating in the central region. Sure enough, with the chanting, the feeling of cultivation just now became clearer, and his understanding of the fire gun art was one step closer. A few hours later, Lu Ming entered the central region again to cultivate the firearms control art. Just like that, Lu Ming cultivated in the central area. When his essential qi was exhausted, he returned to the outer area to recover. Then, he combined it with the chanting of sutras to comprehend the fire gun art. Lu Ming's comprehension of the fire gun control art was rapidly improving. In just half a month, Lu Ming's fire gun controlling art had a breakthrough and entered the second level, which was a small success. In addition, Lu Ming had killed no less than 10 fire attribute demonic beasts in the past half a month. 5 of them were at the 8th grade of 2nd level, and one was even at the 9th grade of 2nd level. The others were all below 8th grade 2nd level. After devouring and refining the demonic beast's blood essence, coupled with half a month's hard work, Lu Ming's cultivation finally broke through again, reaching the 8th grade master realm. Such a cultivation base was already considered extremely high among the bronze disciples of the mystical sword section. Once again, Lu Ming exhausted his essential qi and retreated to the outer area. He meditated in a secluded pile of rocks to recover. When Lu Ming's essential qi had recovered by about half, he suddenly heard a commotion not far away. "No, why did you catch me? I'm just an ordinary person without any cultivation. I can't help you. I'm only at 3rd grade warrior realm, so I can't help you. Please let me go." Sounds of begging for mercy could be heard. "Shut up, what's with all the noise? If I say you can help, then you can help. It's your 8 lifetimes of good fortune to be able to help the disciples of my 10 Directions Sword School." A cold shout rang out. From the voice, it was a young man. "Young heroes of the 10 Directions Sword School, if I can help you, I will definitely help. But you want us to enter the central region, and even get close to the inner region. It's very dangerous there. With my cultivation, if I'm not careful, I will be burned to death. Please, young heroes, spare me." Some people begged for mercy. Immediately, the sound of a slap rang out. The young voice continued, "What are you talking about? What did I call you for? What are you doing? If you continue to talk nonsense, I'll cut you into pieces." The other side of the phone calmed down. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and a figure appeared on the pile of rubble. It was a young man who was about 17 or 18 years old. He saw Lu Ming at a glance. "Haha, senior brother, there's one more person here." The young man laughed and looked at Lu Ming. "You really know how to hide, but do you think that hiding here is useful? Hurry up and come out and help us scout the way to the central region." Lu Ming frowned. He stopped the essential qi that he had recovered halfway and stood up. "Kid, hurry up and come out. Don't dawdle, I don't have time to waste with you." As the young man spoke, he swiped his claw at Lu Ming's throat. It was obvious that he wanted to grab Lu Ming and throw him out like a chicken. However, he was disappointed. Not only was he disappointed, but he was also shocked. This was because Lu Ming had also extended a hand and clawed at him. He was faster and more accurate than him as he grabbed his wrist. The strong force penetrated the bones of the young man's wrist, and the heart-piercing pain made the young man scream. "Arg! Little bastard, you dare to hurt me? You're courting death." The young man's other hand was about to slap Lu Ming. Lu Ming shouted coldly and his essential qi burst out. He swung the arm that was holding the young man's wrist. The young man's arm made a kaka sound and the bones in one of his arms broke into several pieces. He let out a blood-curdling scream and flew more than 10 meters away, falling heavily on the ground. "Arg! Ah! You little bastard, you're dead. You dare to hit me? Do you know who I am?" The young man struggled to get up, hugging his arms and crying out in a heart-wrenching voice. "Aren't you just a disciple of the 10 Direction Sword School? Is it that amazing?" Lu Ming pursed his lips. Chapter 88, Chapter 88 Spear Technique shows its might. "Since you know that I'm a disciple of the 10 Direction Sword School, why don't you kneel down and apologize?" The young man shouted. "What an idiot!" Lu Ming was somewhat speechless. Could it be that everyone in the omnidirectional sword sect was like this? Since Lu Ming knew that he was a disciple of the omnidirectional sword sect and still dared to attack him, it was obvious that he was not afraid of the omnidirectional sword sect. He even asked Lu Ming to kneel down and apologize. If he was not an idiot, what was he? With a sway of his body, Lu Ming left the pile of rubble. At this moment, a few figures rushed over. They were all young people. Further away, there were 5 young men who surrounded more than a dozen secret practitioners and ordinary people who were picking up firestones. "Junior brother Zhao, what's going on?" one of the men who was running over asked. "Senior brother, this little bastard, he actually dared to sneak attack me. If you move, you have to cripple him for me," the young man from before shouted. "Brat, how dare you hurt a disciple of my 10 Directions Sword School? Now, I'll cripple your cultivation and then obediently help us scout the way inside. Perhaps we can still keep our lives," one of the chubby disciples from the 10 Directions Sword School said. He looked at Lu Ming coldly with an arrogant expression. Lu Ming touched his nose speechlessly. This was a disciple of the omnipresent sword sect? Why did they all have the same behavior and look like they were superior? The 10 Direction Sword School was indeed the #1 sect in the Burning Sun Empire, but there was no need for everyone to put on such a high and mighty expression, right? "Kid, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" the chubby young man shouted coldly. "You asked me to scout the way in and even captured so many ordinary people. What do you want?" Lu Ming did not answer. Instead, he asked curiously. "Nonsense, is this something you can ask? Obediently go and scout the way," the chubby young man said coldly, then he threw a punch at Lu Ming's dantian. The chubby young man had the cultivation of a 7th grade master realm. His punch was extremely powerful. If it landed, it would definitely destroy Lu Ming's cyclone and cripple his cultivation. This was the Shifang sword sect, extremely domineering. If they didn't agree, they would destroy your cultivation. The 10 Direction Sword School, We'll have to fight them sooner or later, so I'll collect some interest first. Lu Ming's gaze turned cold. Lu Yuntian might have fallen into the hands of the 10 Direction Sword sect. Lu Ming did not have a good impression of the 10 Direction Sword section. Now, it was even worse. Lu Ming's flame dragon fist blasted out, and his fist force was faster and more ruthless. A punch accurately hit the fat young man's stomach. The fat young man's eyes instantly bulged out. Immediately, he let out a shrill scream. His fat body flew out like a ball, flying nearly 20 meters away before falling to the ground. He rolled a few times before stopping. Ah, you destroyed my cultivation? You actually destroyed my cultivation, bastard, bastard. The chubby young man let out a shrill scream. You're the only one allowed to cripple my cultivation, but I'm not allowed to cripple yours. The remaining 2 young men roared and unsheathed their long swords. 2 sharp sword lights burst out and attacked Lu Ming. The 2 of them were both 7th grade master realm. With a move of his hand, the fire vein spear appeared. He swept the spear across. In the sky, a fiery red light flashed like a moon. The 2 young men from the 10 Directions Sword sect were unable to resist at all. They were sent flying by the long spear, and they vomited blood in the air. When they fell, they were no longer breathing. Lu Ming's shot had already broken their bones and their internal organs were shattered. The chubby young man and the young man from before were stunned. Their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Lu Ming's gaze shifted to the young man with the broken hand. Don't kill me," the young man with the broken hand shouted in fear. However, Lu Ming was unmoved. He raised his long spear. At this moment, the 5 disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School who had surrounded the stone pickers all rushed over. One of them let out a loud roar and revealed his powerful cultivation at the peak of the 8th grade master realm. The young man with the broken hand cried out in fear and ran for his life toward the 5 disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School. However, Lu Ming swung the long spear in his hand and it shot out like lightning. It caught up with the young man with the broken hand in an instant and pierced through his chest from the back, nailing him to the ground. Die! Die! Little bastard, not only will you die, but your family and friends will also die. The peak 8th grade Master Realm disciple let out an angry roar and rushed toward Lu Ming. Let's see who dies first. Using the dragon serpent steps, Lu Ming turned into a gust of wind and rushed towards the 5 men from the omnidirectional sword sect. When he passed by the one-armed young man, he pulled out his fire-patterned spear. Both parties were rapidly approaching. Wild wave slash. The 8th grade Master Realm disciple roared. He held a huge sword that was as wide as a palm with both hands, and the sword light was like a storm, slashing toward Lu Ming. The fire-veined spear shook and swept forward. The spear and the sword clashed, sending sparks flying in all directions and creating a massive boom. The disciple from the omnipresent sword sect trembled and took a dozen steps back, while Lu Ming's body trembled and swayed slightly. The next moment, the other 4 disciples of the omnidirectional sword sect slashed their swords at Lu Ming. Out of the 5 major sects of the Blazing Sun Empire, only the 10 Direction Sword School and the Mystical Sword School specialized in sword techniques, and the sword techniques they specialized in were slightly different. The sword techniques cultivated by the 10 Direction Sword School leaned towards being firm and fierce. They were bold and powerful. The 4 disciples from the Omnipresent Sword School, 2 8th grade and 2 7th grade Master Realm, joined forces. Their sword chi was like a raging wave, sweeping toward Lu Ming. As he attacked, he also used Bloodline Explosion, which was much more powerful. However, they were facing Lu Ming, who had already cultivated the black level low-level martial arts technique to the 2nd level. Lan Yu. Lu Ming's eyes were bright. The essential chi in his entire body burst out and he swept his spear. Boom. 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 There were 4 consecutive explosions, and at the same time, 4 screams. The 2 7th grade Master Realm disciples were instantly killed and sent flying far away. The 2 8th grade Master Realm young men weren't any better off. They were sent flying for more than 10 meters before crashing heavily onto the ground. They coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and were also severely injured. One spear strike had killed 2 and injured 2, shocking the peak 8th grade Master Realm disciple. However, Lu Ming would not give him any chance to catch his breath. He rushed forward a few steps and then jumped high up, smashing the fire-patterned gun down. Landslide. The long spear smashed down with a shrill whistling sound. The disciple from the 10 Direction Sword School turned pale. He exploded with all his strength and circulated the power of his bloodline to the extreme. His combat sword slashed upwards. The spear hit the combat sword, and the force whistled out, forming a gust of wind that swept in all directions. The stone under the disciple's feet exploded. He couldn't stand still and knelt down. The stone on his knee exploded. Chapter 89, Chapter 89 Extinct Volcano. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood and fell to the ground like a pool of mud. The spear had shattered both his arms, and the powerful impact had also shattered his internal organs. He was dead for sure. The power of the black-grade low-level martial arts technique was finally on display. Lu Ming had only cultivated it to the 2nd level, but its power was double that of the yellow-grade high-level martial arts technique's 6th level. How could he be so strong? Who are they? The disciple from the 10 Direction Sword School asked unwillingly as he coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with disbelief. With his cultivation at the peak of the 8th grade Master Realm, he was actually defeated in one move. The cultivation that Lu Ming revealed was clearly only at the 8th grade Master Realm. Lu Ming of the Mystical Sword Sect. The young man murmured. His eyes then became unfocused and his vitality completely disappeared. At the same time, the other 2 8th grade Master Realm experts had also died. Their internal organs were also crushed by Lu Ming. Although the spear technique was not as varied as the sword technique, it was more violent, more direct, and more overbearing. The chubby young man was the only one left. At this moment, the chubby young man's face was deathly pale. His body was constantly trembling, and cold sweat was flowing down his face. Lu Ming walked towards the fat young man step by step. The chubby young man shouted in shock. Tell me, what does the 10 Direction Sword sect want by capturing so many ordinary stone hunters? Lu Ming asked coldly. I can say it, but you have to promise not to kill me. The chubby young man rolled his eyes and shouted. Oh? You don't want to say it? Then you can go to hell. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold and he raised the long spear in his hand. The chubby young man was so scared that his soul almost scattered. He shouted, I'll talk, I'll talk, I'll talk. Lu Ming looked at him coldly, waiting for him to continue. We came with senior brother Zheng. He said he would bring us here to search for treasures, so we came. Senior brother Zheng said that he had read about an extinct volcano near the inner area of the Southridge fire field in the ancient books recorded by his ancestors. There are treasures inside. The chubby young man hurriedly explained. Then why did you catch so many ordinary stone hunters? Lu Ming asked. Because the area around the extinct volcano is very unstable. Lava and flames will burst out from time to time. The ground will even sink in. We need someone to find a safe way to enter the extinct volcano. The chubby young man was scared to death and spoke in full detail. Lu Ming frowned. It was obvious that they wanted to use the stone hunters' lives to find a way for them. This was what martial arts powerhouses were like. In their eyes, the lives of ordinary people were like ants. Lu Ming would never show mercy to his enemies. However, he could not disregard the lives of others for his own selfish reasons. What treasures are there in that extinct volcano? Lu Ming pondered for a moment and asked. I don't know about that. Senior brother Zheng didn't tell us. I've told you everything I know. Can you let me go now? The chubby young man begged, but he was thinking about how to ask senior brother Zheng to kill Lu Ming after he escaped. Wait a minute, I have another question. What's your senior brother Zheng's cultivation? Is there anyone who is stronger than him? The chubby young man answered honestly, Senior brother Zheng is a famous genius of our 10 Direction Sword School. He has already won 8 consecutive victories on the bronze platform. He's not much weaker than the geniuses on the bronze ranking. Among the senior and junior brothers who came this time, senior brother Zheng is the strongest. 8 consecutive wins on the bronze list. The division of ranks among the disciples of the 5 major sects of the Blazing Sun Empire was similar. They were all divided into 3 ranks, bronze, silver, and gold. Similarly, there were bronze and silver lists in every section. The rules were exactly the same. All right, I've said what you wanted me to say. Can you let me go now? The chubby young man said. Let you go? When did I say I would let you go? Lu Ming said coldly. Then, he thrust the long spear and pierced the fat young man's heart. 8 consecutive wins on the bronze platform. I wonder how powerful the 8 consecutive wins on the bronze platform of the 10 Direction Sword sect are. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with a strong desire to fight. Back then, he had vomited blood from He Tai's punch. He Tai had won 8 consecutive victories on the bronze platform of the mystical sword section. They both had 8 consecutive wins on the bronze platform, but they belonged to 2 different sects. Their abilities might not be the same, but the difference would not be too great. Lu Ming's combat strength had improved greatly during this period of time. It was a good time to test the results. Following that, Lu Ming devoured all the blood essence of the omnidirectional sword sect disciples and found a place to refine them. As for the stone hunters, they had already fled like a swarm of bees when the Shifang sword sect disciples were killed. 2 hours later, Lu Ming's essential qi had fully recovered and he had reached his peak. Then, Lu Ming ran in the direction of the extinct volcano that the chubby young man had mentioned. In the southern ridge fire field, in the depths of the central area, near the inner area, there was a tall, dead volcano. It was unknown when this volcano had stopped erupting, but the temperature around it was still astonishingly high. The ground was red. A few thousand meters away from the extinct volcano, there were more than 20 young men. Needless to say, they were all disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School. More than 20 disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School surrounded more than 30 stone hunters. More than 30 stone hunters gathered together, their faces terrified and trembling. Young heroes of the 10 Directions Sword School, I beg you. It's really dangerous there. If you let us explore the way, we'll be sending ourselves to our deaths. I have old and young people to take care of. I beg you, please let me go back. A burly man in his 50s kept bowing and begging. With a flash of sword light, the burly man's head flew high into the air. So noisy. You want to leave? I'll send you on your way now. A disciple from the 10 Directions Sword School sheathed his sword and said coldly. The other stone hunters suddenly kept quiet out of fear and did not dare to speak again. However, the look of despair on their faces became even more intense. You, hurry up and scout the way. If you're lucky enough to walk past, you can still keep your dog life. A disciple from the 10 Directions Sword sect pointed at a dark-skinned man. The burly man's eyes were filled with despair, and his body trembled. If you don't want to go, then die now. The disciple from the 10 Directions Sword School said coldly. I'll go, I'll go. The burly man said in a trembling voice. Then, he walked out while trembling. If they went out to explore, they might still have a way out. If they didn't go, they would die. This burly man must have cultivated martial arts, but he had not awakened his bloodline. He was only at the first-grade warrior realm. He walked forward carefully, and soon, he had walked more than 200 meters. Suddenly, a stream of lava rushed out from the ground and directly submerged the burly man. Arg! The burly man screamed and turned into a ball of fire. In a few breaths, he was turned into a pile of charcoal. The temperature of the lava was terrifyingly high. Chapter 90. Chapter 90, The Weak Are Like Ants. A living person was instantly turned into charcoal. This scene was truly terrifying. When the other stone hunters saw this, they were so scared that they couldn't stop trembling. However, the disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School were very calm, even cold. Mark the places you just passed. Among the 10 Directions Sword sect disciples, a dark-skinned young man with a cold expression ordered. This cold-looking young man was the Shifang Sword sect's senior brother Zheng Ke. He didn't even look at the stone hunters. In his eyes, these stone hunters were just ants, tools to be used. His eyes were fixed on the extinct volcano in front of him. According to the records left by our ancestors, this is the place. I must get the fire spirit milk. As long as I get the fire spirit milk, my physical body will definitely be able to cultivate to the 2nd grade. In that case, my strength will increase greatly, and I will definitely be able to win 10 consecutive battles on the bronze platform and enter the bronze list. It's not just breaking through to the 2nd grade, it's even going to reach a higher level. 300 years ago, our ancestor got the fire spirit milk here. Now that 300 years have passed, there must be a lot of fire spirit milk. If there is enough, it's not entirely impossible to break through to the 3rd grade. Haha, in that case, how much can my combat strength improve? Zheng Qian thought fanatically. Yes, senior brother Zheng. Yes. The Shifang Sword sect disciple replied. Then, he threw out balls of white powder and scattered them on the spot where the burly man had just passed, forming a safe path. Now, you, go and scout the path. The disciple from the 10 Directions Sword School pointed at a young man in his 20s. The young man's face instantly turned pale. His face was filled with despair and cold sweat. He cried out, I beg you, please let me go. I beg you. Ahai, young heroes, I beg you to let Ahai go. Let me take his place. He's still young. A white-haired old man walked out and knelt on the ground, kowtowing non-stop. Grandpa, don't. You can't go. Let me do it, let me do it. I beg you to let Ahai go. He's still young. The old man didn't seem to hear the young man's words and continued to kowtow. Oh! What a loving grandfather-grandson pair. All right, this young master will be lenient. Old man, you go scout the way. A flat-nosed disciple from the 10 Directions sword sect waved his hand and said, Grandpa, Grandpa, don't go. The young man's tears flowed down as he shouted, Ahai, I'm already old. It doesn't matter anymore, but you must live on. The old man warned the young man, and then walked forward without looking back. The young man looked on in despair. The burly man from before had passed through the first 200 meters. It was very safe, and the old man had passed through smoothly. At this point, the old man carefully avoided the place where the lava had spurted out and continued forward. However, before he had even walked 100 meters, the ground suddenly split open when the old man stomped his foot. The old man fell straight down. Then, there was a shrill scream, and after a few breaths, there was no sound. Grandpa! The young man let out a desperate roar. The other stone hunters were even more flustered, their faces pale. Make a mark. Zheng continued to order. Balls of white powder were thrown out, marking the safe routes and the dangerous places. It's your turn, go up. The flat-nosed disciple pointed at the young man from before. The young man's expression changed drastically. Just now, he cried out. My grandfather has already taken my place. Why are you still asking me to go? Replace you? I never said that he was going in your place. He was the one who requested to go first, so of course I have to satisfy him. Now it's your turn. The flat-nosed disciple from the 10 Directions sword sect said coldly with a playful expression on his face. The other disciples of the 10 Directions sword sect looked on indifferently. No, you can't do this, I won't go, I won't go. The young man kept shaking his head and shouting. The other stone hunters kept quiet out of fear. They did not dare to say a word for fear of being noticed by the disciples of the 10 Directions sword school. You're not. The flat-nosed disciple's face turned cold, and he grinned hideously. You don't want to go, right? If you don't want to go, I'll send you on your way now to accompany your dead grandpa. He waved his sword and a cold killing intent enveloped the young man's body. The young man's eyes were filled with fear. In the end, he still trembled and moved forward. After the young man walked a few dozen meters forward, he suddenly started to escape to the side. You want to escape, you're looking for death. The flat-nosed disciple shouted and exhaled. He held his sword with both hands and slashed down at the young man who had escaped. A beam of sword chi shot out and instantly crossed dozens of meters, cutting the young man in half. I've said it before. If you obediently go and explore the path, you might still have a chance to live. If you want to escape, the only path is death. The flat-nosed disciple of the 10 Directions sword sect sneered. He then pointed and said, go scout the path. Those who were pointed at walked out in despair, trembling as they moved forward, hoping that they were lucky enough to reach the end. But the result was still death. Just like that, one by one, they picked up the stones and went forward to explore the way. One by one, they died in the fire and lava. However, the safe route was slowly being discovered. The closer one got to the extinct volcano, the more dangerous it was, and the more unstable the underground was. More than a dozen of the 30 stone hunters had died in the blink of an eye. At this moment, they were still about 100 meters away from the extinct volcano. He called a few more people to investigate, and finally, a complete and safe path appeared. Young heroes, can we go now? One of the remaining stone hunters asked in a low voice. Leave? Where to? The information here cannot be leaked out. Zheng, who hadn't spoken the entire time, spoke. What? What's the meaning of this? The stone hunter's face changed. What do you mean? All of you will die. The flat-nosed disciple of the 10 Directions sword sect laughed sinisterly. No, you said that as long as you found a safe path, you would let us go. You can't do this. You are disciples of the 10 Directions sword school. You can't go back on your word. I'm begging you. No, I don't want to die. I curse you to die a horrible death. More than 10 stone hunters had already had hope, but at this time, their faces were filled with despair and they started to shout crazily. Curse us? You all know that we are disciples of the 10 Direction Sword School. Who would dare to kill us? The flat-nosed disciple of the 10 Direction Sword sect sneered. There's a person there, walking towards us. Suddenly, a disciple of the 10 Direction Sword School shouted. The rest of the people couldn't help but look over. From the right, a young figure was walking towards them. The figure was about 15 or 16 years old. He had a slender figure and a delicate face. However, his eyes were extremely cold, so cold that it was terrifying. This young man was Lu Ming. Chapter 91, Destruction. Lu Ming's gaze swept across the entire scene. He could roughly guess what had happened when he saw the charred bodies. In his heart, a cold and sharp killing intent burst out. Although warriors had great power, they had their own rules and pride. Ordinary warriors would not kill ordinary people. However, these disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School had already lost their bottom line. In order to achieve their goals, they would do anything. Lu Ming's killing intent had never been so strong. Sensing the killing intent from Lu Ming, the eyes of the disciples from the omnidirectional sword sect narrowed. Zheng frowned. He remembered that he had sent 9 people in that direction, but not only had no one come, but an unfamiliar teenager had also come. Something was wrong. Zheng's expression changed. Lu Ming took one step at a time. It seemed slow, but he was actually very fast. In a few breaths, he was in front of the disciple from the omnipresent sword section. Kid, how did you get here? And where are the disciples of my 10 Directions Sword School? Did you see it? A disciple of the 10 Directions Sword School asked loudly. I did, but they're all dead. Lu Ming responded indifferently. The 20 or so disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School all had a change in expression. Someone shouted, Tell me, how did you die? Lu Ming smiled coldly. With a wave of his hand, the fire-patterned spear appeared. A powerful aura burst out. Of course I killed them. Now, I'll send you down to accompany them. You killed him? Brat, you're quite bold. Little bastard, how dare you kill the disciples of my 10 Directions Sword School? You're dead. Not only you, but your family will also be dead. Tell me, what method did you use to sneak attack? You still want to kill us? You're overestimating yourself. I'll kill you. Lu Ming's words caused a commotion. A burly young man strode out with a huge sword in his hand and slashed at Lu Ming's head. If this sword hit, it would definitely split Lu Ming into two. A bolt of lightning flashed and the burly young man's body suddenly stiffened. With a clang, his sword fell to the ground. Then, he clenched his throat with both hands. His eyes were wide open like a dead fish, revealing a look of disbelief. There was a bloody hole in his throat, and blood was flowing out. Lightning pursuit of the fire gun art was the fastest move in the fire gun art. The surrounding disciples of the omnidirectional sword sect did not even see how Lu Ming had attacked. Those who kill will always be killed. If you want to kill me, then be prepared to be killed. Lu Ming's indifferent voice was heard. The burly young man fell to the ground and struggled a few times before he stopped breathing. Good kill. More than 10 stone hunters shouted in their hearts. Although they did not dare to shout it out, they were very happy in their hearts. Zheng's eyes narrowed. What a fast speed! Everyone, let's attack together and kill him. Go to hell! At once, more than a dozen disciples from the omnidirectional sword school roared and leaped high into the air, slashing out sharp sword chi at Lu Ming from the front. The weakest of the disciples was at the 6th grade master realm, while the strongest was at the 8th grade master realm. The combined power of the dozen of them was extremely terrifying. Even a 9th grade master realm expert would be chopped to death by the swords. However, Lu Ming did not move at all. He did not even blink. Fire gun art fire dance. All of a sudden, Lu Ming held the end of the spear in his hand. The long spear swayed and pierced forward. The sound of the long spear vibrating could be heard. Then, fiery red flames suddenly appeared in the sky. These flames were scarlet red, poignant, and beautiful. They were like flowers of flames, and they also seemed to be dancing. When the flower of flames bloomed, the scene suddenly rang out with a series of miserable screams. The 10 or so disciples of the 10 Directions sword sect retreated in unison. Fresh blood scattered in the air, and it was extremely tragic. There was a bloody hole in each of the 10 or so disciples of the 10 Directions sword school, either in their throats or hearts. In one move, 13 disciples of the 10 Directions sword school were killed. However, Lu Ming did not stop at all. He strode forward and swept his long spear horizontally. Bang bang! A series of bone-cracking sounds were heard, and the 8 young men from the 10 Directions sword school were sent flying far away. He fell to the ground and stopped breathing. It was a complete sweep. This was Lu Ming's current combat strength. With his black-grade low-level martial skill fire gun scripture cultivated to the 2nd stage and his cultivation breaking through to the early 8th grade master realm, his battle prowess had increased to a terrifying level. There were only 3 disciples from the 10 Directions sword school left. One was Zheng, and the other was a 9th grade master realm expert. The other one was the flat-nosed young man. As he was standing close to the stone hunters, Lu Ming's attack did not affect him. At this moment, the flat-nosed young man's expression changed drastically, and his legs and stomach trembled. Zheng's expression also became extremely grave. Your combat power is very strong, but you've killed so many of our 10 Directions sword school's disciples. From now on, no one will be able to save you, no matter whether you're in heaven or in hell. Zheng's voice was cold. As long as I kill all of you, who will know that I did it? Lu Ming smiled indifferently. Ha ha ha, you want to kill me? I admit that you're very strong, and I'm not sure if I can kill you. But you want to kill me? I'll let you know how laughable your words are. Zheng Qian pointed his sword at Lu Ming, and a powerful red sword aura flickered. Brother Zhao, let's kill him together. Die! Zheng Jiao suddenly shouted. He leaped up and slashed his sword at Lu Ming. The combat sword cut through the air, producing an ear-piercing sonic boom. At the same time, on the other side, the 9th grade master realm disciple from the omnipresent sword school also burst out and slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming lifted it upwards. The spear and the 2 swords clashed, causing a violent vibration. Lu Ming's figure swayed slightly and he took 3 steps back. Zheng was also thrown back a few meters, landing on the ground. As for the 9th grade master realm young man, he was thrown back a dozen meters and spat out a mouthful of blood. This Zheng Jia is so powerful. Although they had only exchanged one move, Lu Ming could sense that the power that Zheng Qian's combat sword was spreading out was extremely powerful. It was like a raging wave that was continuous. The other 9th grade master realm young man was trash compared to him. He was definitely not weaker than He Tai. The reason why Lu Ming retreated was basically because of Zheng. At this moment, Zheng was also extremely shocked. Lu Ming's strength had also exceeded his expectations. He was not weaker than him. In fact, he was even stronger. There was nothing much to say. The 2 sides were already mortal enemies, and it would only end when one side fell. The two sides fought again. The two of them erupted with their bloodlines. This time, Zheng was the main attacker, while the other 9th grade Master Realm youth sneaked an attack from the side. For a moment, Lu Ming was somewhat passive. As for the flat-nosed youngster, he couldn't do anything at all. He could only watch anxiously from the side. Chapter 92, Killing Zheng. Cross-shaped killing sword. Zheng Jiao wielded a huge sword that was wider than his palm. His attack was extremely overbearing. As he slashed out, the sword radiance formed across and slashed down at Lu Ming. Its power was immense. Broken armor. Lu Ming's long spear trembled. The tip of the spear formed a spinning cutting force that collided with Zheng Jiao's sword gleam. There was a loud explosion. Lu Ming took 2 steps back while Zheng Jiao took 3 steps back. In a head-on confrontation, Lu Ming had the upper hand. This Zheng, how can his attack be so strong? The martial skill he used is clearly not a black-grade martial skill, but a yellow-grade upper-level martial skill. Although it has already been cultivated to an extremely high level, its attack power can't possibly be this strong. There was a flash of suspicion in Lu Ming's eyes. Although Zheng's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 9th grade Master Realm and he had even activated a 5th level Blood Meridian, without a black level martial arts technique, it was impossible for his attack power to be so strong. He was actually only at a slight disadvantage when he fought Lu Ming head-on. Lu Ming's essential qi was 3 times more condensed than ordinary essential qi. In addition, he had already cultivated the flaming gun technique to the 2nd level. Lu Ming could defeat an ordinary 9th grade peak Master Realm martial artist in one move. Oh right, it's the body. This Zheng Jia's body is extremely strong. He should have cultivated the path of body refinement. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He discovered that Zheng Gan's muscles were bulging, and his skin was covered with a faint red glow. It must be his physical body. Zheng had cultivated a body tempering technique. When his physical body was combined with essential qi, he could erupt with astonishing combat power. That was why he could fight against Lu Ming. At this moment, a sword light was rapidly piercing toward Lu Ming. How troublesome! Lu Ming frowned. He swung his long spear and it collided with a thin sword. A figure retreated far away. It was the 9th grade Master Realm disciple from the 10 Direction Sword School. Although the disciple's attack power was not strong, his body movement was not weak. He was slippery and sneaky. He took advantage of Lu Ming's flaws to launch a sneak attack. If I use my bloodline power, I can defeat them easily. However, I can't always rely on my bloodline power. It can only be used as a trump card and can't be used in regular battles. I'll just rely on my current state to finish them off. Lu Ming took a step forward and charged toward Zheng Jian. The long spear came down from above and smashed down heavily. Zheng's eyes focused, and he used his sword to block. The rock under Zheng's feet shattered, and he retreated. He's only at the early stage of the 8th grade Master Realm. Even though he's cultivated a black grade martial skill, how can he be so powerful? My physical body has already been cultivated to complete grade 1, but I'm still no match for him. Zheng Qian's shock could not be any greater. It was normal to suppress him if they were of the same level. However, Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the early stage of the 8th grade Master Realm. How did he do it? Lu Ming's fighting spirit was like a rainbow. He continuously attacked Zheng, using Zheng to practice his spear technique. The surging dragon-shaped vital energy was continuously infused into the long spear. It was extremely smooth. One spear after another, Lu Ming was like an invincible general who was galloping on the battlefield. Zheng was completely suppressed. At this moment, a sword light suddenly stabbed toward Lu Ming's back. I'm just waiting for you to make your move. A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He swept his long spear across without turning his head. A ray of red moonlight flashed, and the 9th grade Master Realm disciple was shocked. He used his movement technique to retreat. But it was too late. The spear was 8 feet long, and with the arm ruler, the 3-meter distance was completely covered. Block it? The 9th grade Master Realm Shifang Sword School disciple turned pale with fright and used his long sword to block in front of him. However, his long sword was thin, so it couldn't be blocked at the root. Lu Ming's long spear struck his long sword. A violent force exploded and the long sword bent. The body of the sword and the body of the spear struck his chest heavily. The Shifang Sword School disciple's body was sent flying like a sandbag. His body was stuck to the ground and slid for dozens of meters, creating a deep ditch on the hard ground. By the time he stopped, he was no longer breathing. A 9th grade Master Realm expert was killed by Lu Ming's spear. After sending the 9th grade Master Realm disciple flying, Lu Ming's long spear did not stop. It continued to move forward and clashed with Zheng Jiao's attack. Now, there's no one to disturb me. I can finish you off. Lu Ming's calm voice was heard. He took a step forward and his long spear struck out like lightning. Zheng did his best to block. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged more than 10 moves. The more Lu Ming fought, the more courageous he became. His understanding of the fire gun art became deeper and his power became greater. Zheng was completely outmatched and was forced to retreat. Not far away, the flat-nosed young man's face turned pale. He suddenly shouted, "Senior brother Zheng, hold on for now. I'll return to the sect first and report to the elders to avenge you." Then, he ran away. "Damn it!" Zheng roared. "He does deserve to die. Don't worry, after I'm done with you, I'll kill him for you." The spear struck Zheng's sword, causing him to retreat, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The repeated battles had caused his muscles to tremble non-stop. The web between his thumb and forefinger had split open, and blood was seeping out. If it was not for his strong physical body that allowed him to unleash his essential chi without thinking of the consequences, he would have been killed by Lu Ming. Even so, he was severely injured. True chi. His true chi is too powerful. It's unstoppable. Zheng's eyes were filled with fear. "Wait a minute. As long as you let me go, I can forget about the fact that you killed so many of my 10 Direction Sword School's disciples. I won't pursue this matter. Otherwise, you won't be able to withstand the anger of the 10 Direction Sword School." Zheng Qian shouted timidly. "You're still threatening me at a time like this? What an idiot!" Lu Ming said indifferently. The long spear did not stop and it was aimed at Zheng Qiao. 10, 10, 10. Zheng Qian retreated 7 or 8 steps, coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. His injuries had worsened. "Stop, stop, treasure. There are treasures in that extinct volcano. As long as you spare me, I can give you half, yes, half." Zheng shouted. "No need. As long as I kill you, everything will be mine. I'm not going to play with you anymore. That junior brother of yours has already run far away. If you continue playing, he might really get away." Lu Ming's lips twitched and his body suddenly flashed red. He had tested enough, so there was no need to keep it. The spear turned into a bolt of lightning, much faster than before. Zheng couldn't block it at all. No. The long spear pierced through his heart. Zheng's hands tightly gripped the spear, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Blood continuously flowed out of his mouth as he hoarsely shouted, "You, who the hell are you?" Lu Ming pulled out his long spear and stomped on the ground. He chased after the flat-nosed young man like a bolt of lightning. Then, his voice came from afar, "Lu Ming of the mystical sword sect." Lu Ming's figure had already disappeared. Zheng muttered, the life in his eyes quickly dissipating. Chapter 93. Chapter 93, Chapter 93 Counting the Harvest. Lu Ming's body was like the wind, extremely fast. He used the dragon serpent steps to its maximum. Although it was only a yellow rank lower level movement technique, Lu Ming's speed was still extremely fast under the explosion of his powerful essential qi. In just a few minutes, he saw the flat-nosed young man's figure. Hearing the sound of the wind, the flat-nosed young man turned around and was almost scared out of his wits. How could he be so fast? Could Zheng have been killed? He had originally thought that Zheng could at least block another 100 moves. Arg! Ah! Don't come over! The flat-nosed youngster ran frantically, shouting wildly. However, the distance between him and Lu Ming continued to close. The flat-nosed youngster simply couldn't escape. Plop! At this time, the flat-nosed young man suddenly stopped, turned around, and knelt down with a plop. His actions were done in one go. Please, please, please don't kill me. As long as you let me go, I won't say a word about what happened today. The flat-nosed young man kept kowtowing and shouting. Why should I believe you? Lu Ming said with a cold smile. I can swear, I swear, I will never tell anyone. If I tell anyone, I will die a horrible death. The flat-nosed young man pointed to the sky and swore. Sure, I can give you a chance. Lu Ming suddenly smiled coldly and kicked him. This kick landed directly on the flat-nosed young man's dantian, scattering his chi current. Arg! Didn't you say that you would give me a chance after you destroyed my cultivation? The flat-nosed young man let out a heart-wrenching scream. Don't worry, I'll give you a chance. Lu Ming grabbed the flat-nosed young man's neck and walked toward the extinct volcano as if he was carrying a little chick. Soon, they arrived at the place where the battle had taken place. At that moment, the stone hunters had all escaped. What are you trying to do? The flat-nosed young man asked in a trembling voice. It's very simple. Walk forward and explore the path. However, you're not allowed to take the path that has already been explored. Walk on the other side. Lu Ming pointed in the direction of the extinct volcano and said indifferently. In an instant, the flat-nosed young man's face turned pale. His voice trembled as he said, Haven't we already found the path to the extinct volcano? Why do you still want me to scout the way? No, I'm not going. Don't you like to ask others to help you find the way? Now, I want you to try it yourself. It's fine if you don't want to go, but I'll send you to reunite with your senior and junior brothers now. Lu Ming waved his long spear. The spear glowed and a cold killing intent enveloped the flat-nosed young man. No, no, you can't do this to me. There are dangers everywhere. I'll die if I go. I'm begging you, let me go. The flat-nosed young man was covered in cold sweat and his body was trembling non-stop. Especially when he thought of how the stone hunters had been burned to death, he shuddered. Before, when he had watched others go to explore the way, he had gloated and acted arrogantly, as if he was watching ants struggling on their deathbeds. He had no pity at all. But now, when it was his turn, he was more afraid than anyone. This is your only chance. My patience is limited. I'll count to 3. If you don't go after 3, then you don't have to go. To deal with such a person, what could be more satisfying than giving him a taste of his own medicine? 1. 2. When Lu Ming was about to say 3, the flat-nosed young man finally could not take the pressure and shouted. Then, his body trembled and he walked forward step by step. The further he walked, the more his body trembled. When he had walked more than 100 meters, a foul smell came out, and he was so scared that he peed himself. Suddenly, a gas burst out from under his feet. The flat-nosed young man was so frightened that his soul flew out of his body. He screamed and fell straight down. Lu Ming frowned. He walked up to take a look and was instantly speechless. The flat-nosed young man's face was ashen. He was not breathing at all. He was actually scared to death by a stream of hot air. Lu Ming shook his head and walked back to collect his spoils. These were the disciples of the omnipresent sword school. They must have many valuable things on them. Lu Ming would not miss this opportunity. As he searched for the spoils of war, he devoured their blood essence one by one. After the search, Lu Ming left the place and returned to the outer area. He then entered the Supreme Shrine and began to refine the blood essence. Now that Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the 8th grade Master Realm, the blood essence of martial artists below the 8th grade Master Realm was of little use to him. Only those above the 8th grade Master Realm would be of some help. After refining all the blood essence of the omnidirectional sword school disciple, Lu Ming's cultivation had improved to a certain extent. However, it was not by much. He was still a distance away from the middle 8th grade Master Realm. After refining the blood essence, Lu Ming began to check his spoils of war. With a wave of his hand, 2 storage rings appeared. It was a pleasant surprise that 2 of the disciples from the 10 Directions Sword School had storage rings. One was from Zhenjia, and the other was from the 9th grade Master Realm youth. Then, with a thought, a pile of items appeared in the Supreme Shrine. Lu Ming started to count the silver notes. Why is there only so little? After counting, Lu Ming frowned slightly. The silver notes of the 20 or so disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School only added up to 4 million taels. More than 4 million taels of silver seemed like a lot, but it depended on where he had gotten it. The 10 or so disciples of the Shifang Sword School were at least at the 6th grade Master Realm. On average, each of them only had less than 200,000 taels of silver. This was considered very little. On second thought, Lu Ming felt at ease. It was very normal. Just like him, the extra silver was exchanged for contribution points, which were then used to exchange for resources that were useful to him to improve his strength. Most of the disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School were the same. They kept some silver on them and exchanged the rest. After keeping the silver notes, Lu Ming looked at the other items. There were some scattered pills that were not worth much money. Lu Ming put them aside. In the end, his gaze fell on a few books. Wild Wave Slash, a yellow-grade low-level sword technique. Soaring Cloud Steps, a yellow-grade high-level movement technique. Hunyuan Technique, a yellow-grade upper-level cultivation skill. Lu Ming was overjoyed to learn 3 cultivation methods and martial arts techniques in a row. Generally speaking, sect disciples like them would rarely have cultivation methods and martial skill secret books on them, because most cultivation methods and martial skill secret books were rented from the sect's library hall to cultivate. There was a time limit, and when the time was up, they would have to return it. Of course, there were also exceptions. Some people had a fortuitous encounter and obtained some cultivation methods and martial skill secret books. These cultivation methods and secret books were for their own private use. For example, these books were mostly privately owned by the disciples of the 10 Directions Sword section. He had obtained the cloud treading steps from the 9th grade Master Realm youth. If he were to sell these 3 cultivation methods and martial skill manuals, they would be worth at least 5 to 6 million silver. He had really profited. However, when Lu Ming's gaze landed on the 4th book, he was greatly shocked. Flaming Vajra Arts, a body tempering technique. Chapter 94. Chapter 94, 9th grade physical body. This was actually a body tempering cultivation technique. It seemed that Zheng was cultivating this Flaming Vajra Arts. Body tempering cultivation techniques were extremely rare in the Divine Wilderness continent. Furthermore, body tempering cultivation techniques were known for being difficult and slow to cultivate. By cultivating a body tempering technique, one's body would constantly become stronger and possess all sorts of unbelievable abilities. According to the strength of the body was divided into 9 grades. Rank 1 was the weakest and rank 9 was the strongest. There were 3 levels, lower tier, upper tier, and peak tier. However, the path of body refinement wasn't a single path. It was a type of martial deo, a supplementary type. Just like the path of inscription, it supplemented the martial deo. This was because if one's physical body wasn't combined with martial arts, one wouldn't be able to unleash the power it should have. For example, the first grade physical body was not corresponding to the martial warrior realm. Without genuine chi and all kinds of martial arts techniques, the body alone was just an empty force. A grade 1 body was no match for a warrior realm martial artist. Even if he had a second grade body, he was no match for a martial warrior. However, this did not mean that one's body was weak and cultivation was useless. Body refinement was an auxiliary to martial arts. Once a strong body, genuine chi, and various martial arts techniques were combined, an unimaginable power would burst out. It wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, but it was an exponential increase. For example, the stronger one's physical body was, the more true energy one could unleash without any restraint, without having to worry about harming one's body. Some powerful martial skills and even secret skills were very harmful to the body. Without a strong body, one could not withstand them. Furthermore, the stronger one's physical body was, the more incredible one's abilities would be. The stronger one's physical body was, the stronger one's vitality and recovery rate would be. Even if one was injured, one would be able to recover very quickly. It was said that when one's physical body was strong enough, one could control the muscles, bones, and bones of the entire body. They could control every single strand of muscle, and they could instantly seal the wound when they were injured. He could also control his muscles and bones to change his shape and appearance. It was extremely wonderful. If he was stronger, he could even regrow a severed limb or even regrow a drop of blood. Of course, these were just legends. Therefore, the path of body refinement existed to support the path of martial arts. When combined with martial arts, it could produce a powerful force. Zheng Jia was a good example. He did not cultivate black-level martial arts techniques, but his physical body was much stronger than Lu Ming's. With a yellow-level upper-level martial arts technique, he could burst out with strength that could compete with Lu Ming. This was especially true for some close combat martial artists who cultivated palm, fist, and claw techniques. If they combined it with a strong body, their strength would increase to a terrifying level. Lu Ming hurriedly opened the flaming Vajra art and read it. After watching it, Lu Ming fell into deep thought. The Blaze Titan art can at most allow one to cultivate a third-grade body. From the looks of it, Zheng should have only cultivated to the great circle of first grade, not second grade. That's enough. If I can cultivate a third-grade body, my strength will increase by at least a few times. Lu Ming's eyes gradually lit up. This wasn't just for show. As a martial artist's cultivation level increased, their true chi would also slowly temper their physical body, making it stronger. However, the process was too slow. It was said that once one reached the martial arts grandmaster realm, one's physical body would naturally improve to the first grade. However, that was not enough to satisfy the needs of a martial artist. The stronger one's cultivation was, the stronger and more condensed one's genuine chi would be. The pressure on one's meridians and physical body would also be stronger. Therefore, when a martial artist fought, he would subconsciously retain a part of his genuine chi to protect his meridians and physical body. Usually, one could unleash 100% of one's strength, but in the true sense, one couldn't even unleash 100% of one's strength. It was already good enough to unleash 80%. However, only after his body became strong could he not have any worries and be able to unleash all his true chi. This was especially true for Lu Ming. His essential chi was too strong and condensed. Hence, he subconsciously left more essential chi to protect his meridians and physical body. Therefore, to Lu Ming, this flaming Vajra art was more important than the black-level martial arts technique. Lu Ming put down the book after carefully studying the cultivation method of the flaming Vajra art. He looked at the fifth and last book. This book was not a cultivation technique or a battle technique, but a notebook. It was found in Zheng's storage ring. After flipping through it, the first few pages were of no importance to Lu Ming. He skipped through them and flipped through more than 10 pages. He found a few pages that had been marked before he saw the one that Lu Ming was interested in. These were the records of the extinct volcano. So that dormant volcano contains fire spirit milk, which is extremely useful for training the flaming Vajra arts. So the treasure Zheng is looking for is fire spirit milk. Lu Ming's eyes lit up after reading it. Initially, the progress of the body tempering technique was extremely slow. Lu Ming did not expect to cultivate the flaming Vajra arts to a profound level in a short period of time. It would not be of much use in a short period of time. However, it would be different if he had the fire spirit milk. He might be able to master the raging flame Vajra arts in a short time. He did not need much. As long as he could cultivate a first-grade body, it would be of great help to Lu Ming's combat strength. Let's go. Since we know, we can't miss this. After tidying up his things, Lu Ming had an idea. He left the Supreme Shrine and headed towards the central region, back to the vicinity of the extinct volcano. The roars of demonic beasts rang out. 5 or 6 demonic beasts held the corpses of the 10 Direction Sword Sect disciples in their mouths and ran away. It must have been the smell of blood that attracted the demonic beasts. Lu Ming ignored him and went to the path that the stone hunters, the disciples of the omnipresent sword sect, had asked to explore. There was a white powder mark here, and the outline of the road could be clearly seen. Lu Ming muttered to himself for a moment and then stepped forward. He didn't walk very quickly. He circulated his true qi throughout his body and observed the ground with all his attention. The terrain in this area was constantly changing. Just because it was fine before didn't mean it was fine now. Fortunately, there were no accidents along the way. Lu Ming successfully passed this section of the road. After walking through this path, they would reach the foot of the dead volcano. There were thick piles of black rocks here, and they were very stable, so there was no need to worry about any flames or lava spurting out. Lu Ming climbed up. The extinct volcano was not tall, only a few hundred meters. Very soon, Lu Ming reached the top. In the middle of the mountain peak was a huge hole that was hundreds of meters deep. Below it was a black crystal that was as black as ink. According to the Zheng family's ancient records, the fire spirit milk was right below this volcano. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming climbed down slowly along the walls. Soon, he climbed down the extinct volcano and reached the bottom. The black crystals below were extremely hard, and inside the wall of the extinct volcano, there was a deep pit. In the pit, Lu Ming saw a spiritual herb at a glance. This spiritual herb was fiery red and emitted a crystal-like luster. Flame crystal grass. Lu Ming was overjoyed to see the spiritual herb. This was one of the materials needed to cultivate the third level of the true war dragon technique. Lu Ming had come to the Lingnan fire field with the intention of finding the flame crystal grass. It was a pity that he had never found it, but he did not expect to find it here. Chapter 95, Chapter 95, Refining the Body. Not only that, when Lu Ming walked closer to take a look, there was a pool of liquid at the root of the flame crystal grass. There was not much of it, but it was fiery red and had a crystal-like feeling, like it was formed by melting fire jade. Fire spirit milk, this is the fire spirit milk. There was indeed fire spirit milk here. No wonder the flame crystal grass could grow here. The fire spirit milk was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It could only be formed in places with extremely rich fire-type spiritual qi, and it contained rich fire-type essence. Lu Ming stepped forward and with a wave of his hand, a jade box and a jade bottle appeared. The jade box was made of ordinary white jade. Lu Ming had prepared it himself to store the spiritual herbs. The jade bottle was found in Zheng's storage ring. It was made of fire jade, and was perfect for storing the fire spiritual milk. He took out a sword, carefully dug out the flame crystal grass, and placed it into a jade box. Then, he circulated his true qi and sucked the fire spirit milk into the jade bottle. It's quite a lot, at least 2 caddies. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He had thought that it would be a great opportunity to have 1 caddy. He did not expect to have 2 caddies. If I refine all of this fire spirit milk, how strong will my physical body be? At the very least, I can cultivate to upper rank 1, right? Lu Ming pondered in his heart and kept the things. He did not stop and went up along the stone wall. It was a smooth journey and he did not encounter any threats. Very soon, Lu Ming walked out of the central area and returned to the outer area. After returning to the outer area, Lu Ming entered the Supreme Shrine directly. Sitting cross-legged, Lu Ming took out the flaming Vajra art and studied it in detail. Then, he took out the jade bottle that contained the fire spirit milk. Now, use the fire spirit milk to practice the raging flame Vajra art. Lu Ming opened the bottle and pondered for a moment. Then, he took a small sip. He swallowed a small mouthful of the fire spirit milk and it immediately erupted like a volcano. It emitted a scorching aura and violent energy that filled Lu Ming's entire body. Lu Ming's body was like a fireball. Nest, the energy of this fire spirit milk is too terrifying. It has exceeded my imagination. It's so hot and so painful. The energy of the fire spirit milk was extremely hot, burning Lu Ming's muscles, bones, and bones. In this situation, it was as if Lu Ming was being roasted in a raging fire. One could imagine the pain. I have to endure it? The reason why it hurts so much is because my body is too weak. I've never cultivated the path of body refinement before. I've only tempered it slowly with my true qi. After the first time, my body has improved, and the next time, it won't hurt so much. Lu Ming's mind whirred. He gritted his teeth and activated the flaming Vajra art. He started to absorb and refine this scorching energy. It was as if his body was a piece of iron that was being burned and forged in the raging flames. Lu Ming could even hear the sound of his body burning. This process lasted for a full 2 hours before the fire spirit milk's energy was completely refined. At this moment, the pain completely disappeared, and an extremely comfortable feeling spread throughout his body. My physical strength has indeed improved a lot. Lu Ming felt the changes in his body carefully. He discovered that although his body didn't become much stronger, his muscles were much tougher, and his entire body was filled with strength. His blood and qi surged in his veins, full of vitality. His body's functions were stronger than before. The raging inferno Vajra art and the fire spirit milk are a perfect match. I only refined a small mouthful of it, and it has such an improvement. Although I haven't reached the first grade physical body, I believe that I will soon reach it if this continues. Now, continue. Following that, Lu Ming took a small mouthful of fire spirit milk and continued to cultivate the raging flames Vajra arts. Just like before, when the fire spirit milk entered his body, it exploded with an intense fire attribute essence that was incomparably scorching. I wonder if the spirit devouring bloodline is useful for the fire spirit milk. Lu Ming suddenly had an idea. Even before his bloodline had completely regrown, he was already able to quickly refine the power of elixirs. Then, could he quickly refine the power of the fire spirit milk now? He would know once he tried. Immediately, Lu Ming controlled his blood meridian and a powerful devouring force was produced at his spine. Immediately, the fire spirit milk's energy in his body was completely absorbed by his bloodline. Not long after, waves of gentler and purer energy gushed into Lu Ming's body. He circulated the flaming Vajra arts and absorbed all the energy into his body to improve his physical strength. It was different from devouring blood essence. When devouring blood essence, the blood meridian would absorb half of the energy and use it to strengthen itself. Only half of the essence would flow into Lu Ming's body. The fire spirit milk was different. All the energy surged into Lu Ming's body. Under the circulation of the flaming Vajra arts, the strength of Lu Ming's body was rapidly increasing. In just about 10 minutes, that small mouthful of fire spirit milk was completely refined, and he felt that his body had become stronger again. Moreover, he didn't feel any pain at all. If I had known earlier, I would have controlled my bloodline from the first bite. I wouldn't have to suffer so much. Lu Ming was full of regret. After resting for a while, he continued to refine the fire-transforming spiritual milk. A day later, about 2 to 3 taels of fire spirit milk had been refined. Lu Ming's physical body had broken through in one fell swoop and reached the first-grade physical body, reaching the initial success of the first-grade physical body. Boom! Lu Ming circulated the true war dragon technique. The dragon-shaped essential qi was like the water of a river, surging in Lu Ming's meridians without restraint. With genuine qi attached to his fist, he punched out. His fist passed through the air, creating a sonic boom. A transparent air wave rushed out. Strong, my body's quality is more than 10 times stronger than before. Whether it's my muscles, bones, meridians, or internal organs, they've all been strengthened by many times. The last time he was besieged by Yao Tianyu and his men, he was severely injured and took 7 to 8 days to recover. But now, Lu Ming believed that he would be fully recovered in 3 days. This was the benefit of having a strong body. Moreover, the combination of his physical body and Lu Ming's cultivation base had increased his combat strength by a large margin. Of course, if Lu Ming did not use his essential qi or martial arts techniques, a third-grade warrior would be able to defeat him easily if he fought with his physical body. The path of the physical body was not used as the main battle, but to support martial arts. I can't just focus on refining the fire spirit milk to improve my physical body. Otherwise, I won't be able to adapt to it all at once. I should go out and cultivate my spear arts now to get my physical body and martial arts in sync. I'll continue to cultivate my physical body after my physical body, true qi, and martial arts have perfectly integrated. Lu Ming then left the Supreme Shrine and returned to the central area to cultivate the fire-controlling spear technique. Just like that, Lu Ming cultivated his spear technique for a few days and refined some fire spiritual milk. As time passed, Lu Ming's spear technique and physical body were improving rapidly. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 days had passed. On the 23rd day, Lu Ming had refined the 2 caddies of fire spirit milk. His physical body was improving at a rapid pace. He advanced from upper first grade to complete first grade and reached lower second grade. This had already surpassed the previous Zheng. Chapter 96, The Momentum of Heaven and Earth. Compared to the substantial improvement of his physical body, the improvement of the fire gun technique was slower. It was still 1 step away from the 3rd level. After all, it was a black-grade martial arts technique, and the difficulty of cultivating it was much more difficult than yellow-grade martial arts techniques. Lu Ming's cultivation had not improved much either. He had not been deliberately killing demonic beasts or devouring their blood essence these days. Therefore, his cultivation had only reached the peak of the early 8th grade Master Realm. He was still 1 step away from the middle 8th grade Master Realm. Lu Ming was practicing his spear techniques in the middle of the Southridge fire field. He waved his long spear like a dancing dragon, bringing with it the sound of air explosions. It was as if a hurricane was blowing within a 10-meter radius. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Lu Ming felt that he was very close to the 3rd level. However, he was still lacking a little. It was like a layer of paper that he could not break through. Lu Ming's mind was immersed in the fire gun execution, trying his best to find the aura of a breakthrough. Right at this moment, a dull boom suddenly sounded. Lu Ming was shocked and stopped cultivating. The rumbling sounds continued, and it was even more intense than before. Even the ground started to shake. The roars of the demonic beasts were heard. Then, Lu Ming saw that the demonic beasts seemed to have encountered something terrifying and were running for their lives. The shaking got louder, and the ground shook violently. Not good, could it be a volcanic eruption? Let's go. Lu Ming's heart suddenly moved. Then, he was greatly shocked. He turned around and ran outside. Along the way, he saw at least a few hundred demon beasts running from the depths to the periphery. More than 10 minutes later, Lu Ming ran to the outer area and stopped to look at the inner area. At this moment, an earth-shattering boom was heard and the ground shook violently. Then, Lu Ming saw an unforgettable scene. A fiery red pillar of fire shot out from a mountain peak like a fire dragon, as if it was about to soar into the sky. The pillar of fire shot up into the sky and then dispersed like an extremely beautiful firework. Thick smoke billowed and pillars of fire shot into the sky, dyeing the horizon red. Is this the power of a volcanic eruption? They were simply too powerful. All of them gathered together and exploded at once. Their might could break the heavens and earth. This kind of might was simply too shocking. Was this the power of nature? Can human strength contend against it? Lu Ming looked at the scene of the volcano erupting in the distance in a daze. Fire? Gather? Burst? Might? Lu Ming seemed to be in a daze. His eyes were staring straight at the volcano in front of him as he mumbled to himself. Then, he couldn't help but take a step forward toward the central region. The volcano seemed to have accumulated too much energy and was constantly erupting. Fiery red lava was constantly spewing out. The more Lu Ming walked towards the central region, the clearer he could see. The might was also clearer. When Lu Ming reached the central area, he could not help but wave his long spear and cultivate the fire gun controlling art. Fire, magma explosion. Exploded. He remembered the sixth move of the fire gun controlling art. The sixth move was called explosion. This move was extremely powerful, but he had never succeeded in cultivating it. At this moment, he suddenly understood it. The long spear suddenly stabbed into the ground. At the same time, the true chi in his body madly gathered at the tip of the spear. It condensed and did not dissipate. When the long spear stabbed into the ground, all the true chi suddenly burst out. A huge crater over 2 meters wide and 1 meter deep was created on the ground. What a powerful force! Was this the explosion? Moreover, the fire gun art has finally advanced to the 3rd level. Lu Ming's face revealed a happy smile. Just now, not only did he successfully display the explosion, but his fire gun art also reached the 3rd level. However, the amount of true chi consumed by this move is too terrifying. Lu Ming smiled helplessly. The explosion technique he had just used had directly consumed a third of his true chi. It seemed that he couldn't use this move too often and could only use it as a trump card. Following that, Lu Ming started to cultivate the fire gun controlling art. However, he stopped after 2 minutes. No, it doesn't feel right. Compared to a volcano, what I've comprehended is only its form and not its soul or its power. Lu Ming frowned and pondered. The volcano was still erupting with a terrifying might. Just by looking at it, one would feel a sense of fear. Right, this kind of might, I don't have this kind of might. Lu Ming's mind kept on thinking. His eyes were fixed on the erupting volcano in the distance, as if he was stunned. After an unknown amount of time, the volcanic eruption had stopped. However, he still stood there and pondered. In his mind, it was as if a volcano had appeared and was constantly erupting. Unknowingly, the long spear in Lu Ming's hands began to dance according to the moves of the fire gun controlling art. The spear's radiance whistled and the long spear pierced through the air. Lu Ming cultivated tirelessly. Suddenly, Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and his eyes lit up. That's right, the force of a volcano, the force of fire, is the force of control. Lu Ming suddenly thrust his spear. It was just an ordinary spear and not any of the moves in the fire gun technique. However, there was a mysterious power contained in it. This move stabbed into the ground. The ground suddenly exploded, sending gravel flying, and a large pit appeared. This huge pit was not the slightest bit smaller than the one he had created with the explosion move. Force. This is the energy of the fire. Lu Ming's eyes were extremely bright. He could not suppress the joy in his heart. This time, he had gained a lot from watching the volcanic eruption. Not only did he have a breakthrough in the fire gun control technique, but he also comprehended control force. Everything in the world had its own power. A mountain, with the momentum of a mountain, was majestic and vast. Water had the momentum of water. It could stir up huge waves and could also nurture life. The wind also had the momentum of the wind, which could destroy everything and change into nothing. Fire, of course, had its own momentum. It was scorching, violent, and destructive. Everything in the world had momentum. If a martial artist could comprehend it and use it, he could burst out with incredible power. Just now, Lu Ming's casual shot was actually as powerful as the explosion move. Then what if he added control force when he used the explosion? How powerful would it be? Lu Ming was extremely excited. He had never expected that he could actually comprehend the energy of control, the energy of fire. Force wasn't something that just anyone could comprehend. Only a small portion of extremely talented geniuses could comprehend it, and the number was astonishingly small. It was even rarer to be able to comprehend control force at the Master Realm. Since the establishment of the mystical sword sect, not many people had been able to do so. Chapter 97, The Newcomer King from a Year Ago. Thereafter, Lu Ming continued to cultivate. He only stopped after 3 days. I've completely mastered the force of fire, but the level of fire is still very low. I've only just started. In the future, I'll need to continue cultivating and comprehending it. It's time to go back. I've been in the southern fire field for more than 40 days, and there's less than a month left before the 4-month deadline I promised Feng Wu. I can't go back on my word. Yao Tianyu, just you wait. Out of habit, Lu Ming searched the surroundings and caught a demonic beast. He rode the demonic beast and quickly headed back to the mystical sword section. Lu Ming returned to the mystical sword sect 5 days later. Senior brother Lu Ming, you're back. As soon as he entered the dormitory, he ran into Peng Shi and Hua Qi, who were walking out together. When Peng Shi saw Lu Ming, he smiled happily. Big Rock, where are you guys going? Lu Ming asked curiously. Senior brother Lu Ming, you're back just in time. There's going to be a show to watch. Feng Fengli from the Onyx Tortoise Hall is going to fight his 10th battle on the bronze platform today. If he wins this battle, there'll be one more person on the bronze ranking. Peng Shi said excitedly. Feng Xingli? Who is Feng Xingli? Lu Ming had a puzzled look. No way. Lu Ming, you don't even know Feng Xingli. Hua Qi looked at Lu Ming in disdain. Lu Ming touched his nose with a bitter smile and nodded. All right, I lose to you. Hua Qi was speechless. He pouted and said, Feng Xingli was the rookie king a year ago. Haven't you heard of him? The rookie king from a year ago. Lu Ming's interest was immediately piqued. That's right. He was the newcomer king from last year. Therefore, this battle is very meaningful. Among the 2 batches of disciples, the first one started to enter the bronze rank. The others haven't grown up yet, so it has attracted a lot of attention. Hua Qi explained. After what had happened last time, Hua Kai's attitude towards him had completely changed. He no longer had a stinky face all day long, shouting that he would defeat him in the future. Interesting. Let's go together. Lu Ming was looking forward to it. How strong was the newcomer king from a year ago? Moreover, he was originally going to the bronze platform. The 3 of them immediately rushed towards the bronze platform. The bronze platform was located in the middle of the 4 great academies. It was a battle platform. The bronze platform was surrounded by 4 huge stands that could accommodate 100,000 people. When Lu Ming and the rest arrived, the grandstand around the bronze platform was already packed with people. At a rough glance, There were at least tens of thousands of people. It's too lively. So many people have come. Peng Shi's eyes widened as he looked around. Lu Ming was also secretly amazed. There were only about 50,000 bronze disciples from the 4 great academies. This time, no less than 30,000 of them had come. It was clear how sensational this was. Other than a few who were out on missions or in seclusion, most of the people who knew about the news came. The 3 of them found a place to sit down, and the surrounding people began to discuss. Do you think Feng Zhengli will succeed in his challenge? The opponent is also a ruthless person with 9 consecutive victories. In my opinion, Feng Zhengli will definitely win. He was the new disciple king last year. He's terrifyingly talented. As the first disciple to enter the bronze rank in the last 2 batches, he must be very confident. I also think that Feng Zhengli will win. Didn't you see that Feng Zhengli had 9 consecutive battles yesterday? He won all 9 of them. His combat strength is terrifying. I don't think he has even used his full strength. 10 consecutive wins will definitely not be a problem. What I am more concerned about is whether Feng Zhengli will continue to challenge after he wins. Continue the challenge? Then I'll have to challenge the geniuses on the bronze rank. If that's the case, I'll have a good look today. Not only in this area, but the people around the bronze platform were also discussing this. Feng Zhengli was the first one to make it to the bronze rank, so he naturally attracted a lot of attention. Previously, the bronze ranking was filled with genius disciples who had joined the mystical sword sect 2 years ago. For example, Yao Tianyu had joined 2 years ago. Feng Zhengli is here. Suddenly, someone shouted. Following that, the entire place fell silent. A young man in a yellow shirt was walking toward them from the northern entrance of the bronze platform. The young man had an ordinary appearance, but he was very young. He looked to be only 16 or 17 years old. With a long sword on his back, he slowly ascended the bronze platform. Then, he stood there quietly. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked up to the bronze platform. This middle-aged man was the elder in charge of managing and presiding over the bronze platform. He was also the judge. He would sort out the situation of the duels on the bronze platform and report it to the section. Feng Zhengli, your opponent today is Sun Guang. Sun Guang, please come up the stage. The middle-aged judge announced loudly, his voice reverberating throughout the entire court. As soon as the judge finished speaking, the sound of air being torn could be heard. A young man of about 18 or 19 years old leaped up a few times and moved as fast as lightning. He was much faster than Lu Ming when he used the dragon serpent steps at full force. He landed on the bronze platform in an instant, displaying his extremely brilliant movement technique. So fast. With this kind of movement technique, I wouldn't even be able to react in time if I were to fight him. Many people sighed. Sun Guang leaped onto the bronze platform and stood opposite Feng Zhengli. Feng Zhengli, I didn't expect it to be a battle between the 2 of us. Haha, that's good. As long as I defeat you, I will be able to enter the bronze rank. Although you were the new generation king a year ago and have extraordinary talent, you are still too young. It's still too early for you to fight me. Sun Guang laughed. Someone said the same thing yesterday, but he couldn't block my sword. Feng Zhengli's calm voice came out of his mouth. He seemed very confident. Sun Guang's face suddenly darkened. I believe that everyone is aware of the rules of the bronze platform. However, I would like to re-explain the rules here. On the bronze platform, one is responsible for one's own life and death. However, as long as one person admits defeat, the battle will end. The other person is not allowed to continue attacking. If one violates this rule, all results will be cancelled. Also, you can use any means except for pills and other drugs to increase your combat strength. Now, the battle begins. The middle-aged judge announced loudly and then stepped aside. As soon as the judge finished speaking, Sun Guang's body flashed and he charged towards Feng Xingli. He was even faster than when he was on the stage. Moon Shadow Light Splitting Sword, slash. When he was 10 meters away from Feng Xingli, Sun Guang jumped up high and swung his sword. A dense, crescent-shaped sword chi slashed towards Feng Xingli. What a powerful sword technique! This is definitely the 6th level of a yellow-grade upper-level martial arts technique. Someone near Lu Ming could not help but cheer. Lu Ming's gaze flickered slightly. He could tell that Sun Guang had not only cultivated the yellow-level upper-class sword technique to the 6th level, but his body technique was also at the 6th level of the yellow-level upper-class body technique. Furthermore, his cultivation was at the peak of the 9th grade master realm. With the addition of his bloodline, his combat strength could not be said to be weak. An existence that could obtain 9 consecutive victories was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 98, A New Genius on the Bronze List. At this moment, Feng Xingli moved. With a sword cry, he unsheathed his sword. Not many people clearly saw how he pulled out the sword. Most people only heard the sound of the sword, and then saw a white sword light flash in the air. Then, everyone saw the dense sword chi that Sun Guang had slashed out disappear without a trace. Then, Sun Guang grunted and his body flew far away, falling on the fighting ring. What was going on? Many people looked at each other, not knowing what had happened, because it had happened too quickly. Many people only saw Sun Guang launch an attack, and then saw a flash of sword light, and Sun Guang flew out. This what was happening? Did Sun Guang lose? On the side, Peng Shi was tongue-tied. Hua Qi was also puzzled. That's right, Sun Guang lost. He was defeated by Feng Xingli with one strike. Look at Sun Guang's chest, there's a wound. Lu Ming answered. The person beside Lu Ming quickly looked over. Indeed, he saw a deep sword wound on Sun Guang's chest. Blood was flowing out continuously. Others might not have seen it clearly, but Lu Ming saw it clearly. Just now, Feng Xingli pulled out his sword and attacked. With one strike, he destroyed all of Sun Guang's attacks and left a wound on Sun Guang's chest. What a fast sword, and what a powerful attack! Lu Ming's eyes flickered and he was somewhat amazed. He concluded that the sword technique that Feng Xingli used was definitely a black-grade martial skill. In the fighting ring, Sun Guang struggled to get up. His face was still filled with shock. He cupped his fists and said, "I've lost. Thank you for showing mercy, junior brother Feng." He knew that if Feng Xingli didn't retract a part of his power, he would have been dead. Thanks for letting me win. Feng Xingli cupped his fists. Sun Guang did not say anything more. He turned around and left the fighting ring, disappearing without a trace. If he was defeated, his past achievements would be cancelled and he would have to accumulate them again. The middle-aged judge stepped forward and announced, "Feng Xingli is the winner of this battle. He's on the bronze list." Following the referee's announcement, the entire venue erupted into an uproar. He did it? Feng Xingli did it? As a new disciple in the last 2 years, he was the first one to make it to the bronze rank. He's the representative of all the new disciples in the last 2 years. Amazing. Feng Xingli is so amazing. He has entered the bronze rank in less than 2 years. He is indeed the king of the new disciples. Other than him, the others who have entered the sect in the past 2 years will need at least half a year to enter the bronze rank. That's right, the previous new generation king, Feng Xingli is considered extremely powerful. Do you guys think he'll continue to challenge? I really hope he continues to challenge. Did you see that more than half of the geniuses ranked below 30th on the bronze rank are here? Gasps of admiration could be heard all around. Peng Shi, who was standing beside Lu Ming, was also very excited. One day, I'll also be on the bronze list. Hua Qi clenched his fists and said confidently. Love-struck fool, I believe you can do it. Both you and senior brother Lu will be fine. I don't know if I will have a chance in this life. Pang Shi said longingly. Lu Ming patted Pang Shi's shoulder and said with a smile, Big Rock, you're working so hard. You can definitely do it. When Pang Shi had first joined the sect, he had been in the 9th grade warrior realm. After half a year of cultivation, he had broken through to the peak of the 1st grade master realm. Although his cultivation speed was not fast, he took it one step at a time and his foundation was very solid. Feng Xin Lai, you are now ranked 57th on the bronze list. You are qualified to challenge the geniuses on the bronze list. Do you still want to challenge them? The middle-aged judge asked. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Feng Xingli. They were all very curious. Would he continue to challenge? Feng Xingli didn't reply. He seemed to be thinking. Who do you think Feng Xingli will challenge if he continues? It's hard to say, but he'll definitely challenge those who are ranked 45th and above on the bronze rank, because they're in the same class. That's right. If he wants to fight today, he can only challenge the geniuses on the bronze list. Look, Duan Muhu who is ranked 55th, Yao Tianyu who is ranked 51st, Yan Su who is ranked 50th, and Ji Dong who is ranked 48th are all here. He is most likely to challenge them. Sounds of discussion and speculation rang out in the surroundings. Lu Ming's gaze shifted. He followed the others' gazes and saw Yao Tianyu on the eastern grandstand. Yao Tianyu crossed his arms and sat there calmly. Beside him, there were more than a dozen minions. He Tai, the red-robed youth, and the others were all familiar faces. Senior brother Yao, do you think Feng Xingli will challenge you? A young man asked. I don't know. Yao Tianyu replied indifferently. Then, if Feng Xingli challenges you, are you confident? The young man asked again. Although Feng Xingli's sword of essence restoring is powerful, it's not enough to challenge me. Yao Tianyu replied confidently. That's for sure. How can this Feng Xingli be a match for senior brother Yao? If he overestimates himself and challenges senior brother Yao, he's just looking for trouble. The red-robed young man immediately began to flatter him. Yao Tianyu smiled as he looked down at the fighting ring. On the fighting ring, Feng Xingli pondered for a while and replied, I choose to continue the challenge. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere in the hall exploded. Everyone stared at Feng Xingli, waiting to see who he would challenge. Feng Xingli's eyes scanned the stands and then landed on the west side. Duan Muhu, come down and fight. Feng Xingli said loudly. On the west side of the stands, a burly young man stood up with a gloomy expression. Feng Xingli, are you sure you want to challenge me? Of course. Feng Xingli said. Haha, good. Feng Xingli, I will make you regret your choice. Duan Muhu laughed in anger. It was not a glorious thing to be challenged by someone who had just entered the bronze rank. On the contrary, it was an embarrassing thing. It was simple. Being challenged meant that you were weak and looked down on. Bzzzzz. Duan Muhu jumped down from the stands. With a few leaps, he crossed a distance of more than 100 meters and arrived on the fighting ring. The speed of his movement technique was no weaker than Sun Guang's. The two of them stood facing each other. I didn't expect Feng Xingli to challenge Duan Muhu. This is going to be interesting, said an old disciple in his 20s not far from Lu Ming. Oh? How is it interesting? The others asked. Even Lu Ming, Pang Shi, and the others looked at him. The senior disciple felt proud that he had attracted so many people all of a sudden. Letting out a dry cough, he said, you guys should have seen it just now. Feng Xingli's sword technique is extremely fast, and the power that burst out in an instant is extremely powerful. This sword technique is a black-grade low-level martial skill, origin sword. This sword technique is extremely powerful, but it has a weakness. It consumes a lot of true qi. If I can't defeat the enemy with one strike, I'll be in danger. Lu Ming nodded in his heart. This sort of returning to origin was quite similar to the explosion of the fire gun technique. Chapter 99, My battle has only just begun. The senior disciple continued to explain, however, the martial skill that Duan Muhu practices is the exact opposite of Feng Xingli's. Duan Muhu practices a defensive black-grade low-level martial skill, Heavenly Tiger Body Protection Technique. One is for defense, and the other is for attack. Isn't this very interesting? Everyone came to a realization. Feng Xingli and Duan Muhu were like a spear and a shield. They were the exact opposite. This battle would determine whether Feng Xingli's spear attack was stronger or Duan Muhu's shield defense was stronger. Whoever was stronger would win. This situation was not only happening here, it was happening everywhere. Many senior disciples had been in the sect for 5 to 8 years. Their cultivation might not be high, but they had sharp eyes and knew a lot of information. Many people were even more interested now that they knew the martial techniques that the two were good at. Now, let the battle begin. The judge announced and retreated to the side. Instantly, Feng Xingli and Duan Muhu's bodies exploded with powerful auras. Their auras collided in the air. At this moment, Feng Xingli moved. He unsheathed his long sword and the sword light was like a bolt of lightning. It pierced through the air and stabbed towards Duan Muhu. One sword of essence restoring. This sword was even stronger than the previous one. That was because Feng Xingli had activated his bloodline. 6 chakras meant a level 6 bloodline. This was the first time Lu Ming had seen a martial artist with level 6 blood meridian. This sword was extremely stunning. Everyone's eyes could not help but stare at it. Duan Muhu took a heavy step forward, followed by a tiger's roar. Around his body, 2 fierce tigers condensed from genuine qi appeared. The 2 ferocious tigers leaped and roared around Duan Muhu's body, surrounding him so tightly that not even water could escape. Feng Xingli, let's see how you're going to break my defense. Duan Muhu roared. In an instant, Feng Xingli's long sword pierced through Duan Muhu. Roar. The 2 tigers roared and blocked Duan Muhu's way, clashing with Feng Xingli's sword. The point where the long sword and the fierce tiger met glowed with a piercing light. However, everyone was staring at the fighting ring and did not dare to look away, for fear of missing the exciting moment. This was definitely a battle that could be decided in one move. If Feng Fengli could break through Duan Muhu's defense, then Feng Fengli would definitely win. On the other hand, Duan Muhu would win. Would Feng Xingli be able to break through Duan Muhu's defense? All of a sudden, a loud boom could be heard as Feng Xingli and Duan Muhu crossed each other. Who won? Suddenly, Duan Muhu's body fell to his knees and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone could see that there was a deep gash on his chest, just like Sun Guang's. I've lost. Duan Muhu stood up and left without looking back. Duan Muhu was defeated, and the whole place was in an uproar. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Although it was only one move, it was the peak confrontation of attack and defense. Not bad, today's trip was not in vain. Do you guys think Feng Xingli will continue to challenge? I don't think so. His bloodline has exploded. It's hard for him to recover in a short time. That's true. At the same time, the judge on the fighting ring announced Feng Xingli's victory. Under the admiring and envious gazes of the audience, Feng Xingli slowly walked down the fighting ring. Amazing, that's amazing. Senior brother Lu Ming, love-struck fool, let's go back. I must work harder in my cultivation and strive to be on the bronze ranking in the future. Peng Shi said with determination. Go back. The battle isn't over yet, why should we go back? The battle isn't over yet. Beside Lu Ming, Peng Shi, Hua Qi, and the others were all stunned. Wasn't the duel over? Lu Ming had not finished yet. Feng Xingli's battle has ended, but mine has just begun. Lu Ming smiled, then got up and leaped down from the fighting ring. In a few breaths, Lu Ming floated up to the bronze platform. Lu, what is senior brother Lu Ming doing? Peng Shi said in a daze. The others were also stunned. It seems that Lu Ming wants to challenge the bronze platform today. At this moment, Hua Kai's eyes were extremely bright and shining. At the same time, he was also slightly shocked. What? Senior brother Lu Ming wants to challenge the bronze platform? Peng Shi was extremely shocked. The other people nearby were also shocked. The disciples of the 4 courtyards around the bronze platform were ready to leave the arena. They were all stunned when they saw a figure suddenly fly up the platform. Who is that? What are you doing on the bronze platform now? Wasn't that Lu Ming? This year's newcomer king, Lu Ming. So he is Lu Ming. What does he want to do? Is he going to challenge the bronze platform? That's impossible, right? Even if he's the newcomer king, he's only this year's newcomer king. It's still too early for him to challenge the bronze stage. There was a burst of discussion in the surroundings, but those who had wanted to leave sat back down. On the fighting ring, the middle-aged judge, who was about to leave, and Feng Xingli, who had already walked to the edge of the fighting ring, both stopped. Lu Ming, what do you want to do on stage? The middle-aged judge asked with a smile. Elder, Lu Ming requests to challenge the bronze platform. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said. As soon as he said that, the crowd instantly boiled over. Whoa, you really want to challenge the bronze platform? He's too arrogant and too anxious. Lu Ming is only the newcomer king this year and he wants to challenge the bronze platform? You're too anxious. He's just a kid. From what I can see, he's just envious of Feng Xingli's consecutive victories. That's why he's charging at Feng Xingli. There's almost no chance of him winning if he challenges Feng Xingli now. That's not necessarily true. I heard that 3 months ago, during the battle when he demolished the Star Moon Tower, he revealed that his combat strength was not weaker than a 9th grade Master Realm martial artist. So what? What was the use of a 9th grade master on the bronze platform? Which of the people on the bronze platform had combat strength lower than 9th grade Master Realm? I acknowledge Lu Ming's talent. However, he just joined the sect this year. In another year, I don't deny that he will be able to enter the bronze rank like Feng Fengli. But now, it's almost impossible. Cultivation isn't enough to challenge the bronze platform. Cultivation can be improved quickly if you have some natural treasures, but martial arts and secret skills take time to comprehend. Those on the bronze list who can cultivate profound level martial arts techniques are all talented and spend a lot of time to comprehend them. Maybe he just wants to win a few more times before he stops. You'll stop after a few consecutive wins. He's the newcomer king, not an ordinary disciple. If he's going to give up after winning a few rounds, then he'd rather not go up the stage. That would be even more embarrassing. There was a clamor at the scene, but the discussion was almost one-sided. Everyone felt that Lu Ming was too impulsive and should not challenge now. He should lie low like Feng Xingli and wait for his combat strength to reach a certain level before he exploded and shocked the world. In the southern stands, Peng Shi and the others were still in a daze. Hua Qi, how many consecutive wins do you think senior brother Lu Ming can achieve? Can you get on the bronze list? Peng Shi asked in a daze. Lu Ming, I really can't see through him anymore. However, he's not an impulsive person. Since he went up, he must have some confidence. Even though he said this, shock still remained in Hua Kai's eyes. That's true. I also believe in senior brother Lu Ming. Peng Shi scratched his head. Nearby, the others heard this and looked at them with disdain. They felt that the two of them were too blind. Chapter 100, Chapter 100 settled with one sword. On the East Grandstand. Lu Ming, it's that little bastard Lu Ming. He's really overestimating himself. He really came to challenge the bronze platform. The red-robed youth beside Yao Tianyu shouted. He is indeed overestimating himself, but it's just as well. We can send people to kill him. Senior brother Yao, what do you think? The other young man said coldly, then looked at Yao Tianyu. Yao Tianyu looked at Lu Ming on the platform and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Sure. He had been looking for an opportunity to kill Lu Ming. Since Lu Ming had come up to the bronze platform on his own, he would not let this opportunity go. In the stands in other directions, some geniuses on the bronze ranking also looked at Lu Ming with curious expressions. On the bronze platform. Lu Ming, are you really going to challenge the bronze platform? The middle-aged judge asked in surprise. Lu Ming nodded again. All right, since you've decided, I won't stop you. Let the challenge begin. The middle-aged judge announced in a straightforward manner. At the side of the fighting ring, Feng Xingli cast a curious glance at Lu Ming. His eyes glimmered and he flew to the northern stands to watch with great interest. At this moment, the judge had already made the announcement, and the entire venue quieted down instead. Everyone began to watch seriously. The last newcomer king had just made it to the bronze rank, and now this year's newcomer king was challenging him again. It was really interesting. This had never happened before in the history of the mystical sword section. How far could Lu Ming go? Many people were curious. Who wants to fight me first? Lu Ming looked around and said in a clear voice. The first 5 matches on the bronze stage were more casual, and anyone could go up and challenge them. However, after 5 rounds, it would be necessary for people with the same winning streak to fight each other. Otherwise, it would not be able to show their strength at all. The people below the 9th grade master realm fell silent. Although they felt that Lu Ming could not win more than a few rounds, Lu Ming's abilities were still there. A few months ago, he already had the combat strength of a 9th grade master. I'll fight you. A figure quickly jumped onto the fighting ring. It's Duan Mujinming from the White Tiger Hall. It's said that his cultivation has already reached the mid-stage of the 9th grade master realm. As soon as this person went up the stage, there were cries around him. Duan Mujinming was in his 20s. His face was pale and his eyes were malicious. He stared at Lu Ming and sneered. Lu Ming, you really don't know how to hold back. You actually came to challenge the bronze platform now. Haha, I'll make you stop in the first round. The newcomer king is going to challenge the bronze platform and stop in the first round. This will definitely create a record in the mystical sword sect and will be remembered for centuries. Duan Mujinming's tone was filled with mockery and mockery. Your Duan Mu family is indeed the first to come. However, I've discovered that your Duan Mu family has a common trait. You have no skills at all, but you're very good at boasting. The Duan Mu family members were furious. Damn it, how dare you look down on my Duan Mu family. Duan Mujinming, cripple him. Let him know the power of the Duan Mu family. Cripple him. Duan Mujinming's eyes were also extremely gloomy. He said coldly, Lu Ming, you'll pay a painful price for what you said. Duan Mujinming unsheathed his long sword, and a white sword light shot out from it. It was extremely sharp. Lu Ming waved his hand and a huge sword that was as wide as a palm and 1.5 meters long appeared in his hand. Zheng had left this great sword behind. There was no need to use the fire-patterned gun to deal with such a small fry. Moreover, Lu Ming wanted to test if he could exert the power of the lustrous sword technique with such a huge sword after his physical body had improved. All right, I don't need to say more about the rules. Let the battle begin. The middle-aged judge announced. Hurry up, I don't have that much time. There are still more than 10 matches to go. Lu Ming said calmly. His tone was full of disdain, as if he didn't take Duan Mujinming seriously at all. He even said that there were more than 10 matches to go, as if he could really win 10 times in a row. Nest, you're really arrogant. That's right. He's too arrogant. However, the more arrogant he is, the more embarrassed he will be when he is defeated later. The surroundings were filled with discussions. "Damn it, I'll cripple you!" Duan Mujinming roared in anger. He moved and continued to charge toward Lu Ming. Fierce tiger sword technique. Duan Mujinming let out a long howl and swung his combat sword. The illusionary image of a ferocious tiger could be vaguely seen on the combat sword. It was extremely ferocious as it slashed toward Lu Ming. A middle 9th grade Master Realm cultivator only has this much strength. The corners of Lu Ming's mouth twitched slightly and he swung his sword. This strike was very direct. It was not a sword technique, but a casual slash. It was completely a brute force slash. This sword directly hit Duan Mujinming's combat sword. Then, everyone saw that Duan Mujinming's combat sword was bent and deformed, and the blade heavily hit Duan Mujinming's own chest. Duan Mujinming's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. With a loud boom, Duan Mujinming's body flew backward like a cannonball. He flew more than 20 meters and then slid more than 10 meters on the fighting ring before falling off. The entire place suddenly fell into a deathly silence, and the atmosphere seemed to have frozen at this moment. Many people were even loudly criticizing Lu Ming's arrogant words. However, at this moment, their expressions froze. One sword. He had only used one sword. It was an ordinary sword, but Duan Mujinming had been blown out of the fighting ring. Wasn't he too strong? Wasn't the difference too great? All right, senior brother Lu Ming is the best. Peng Shi reacted and shouted in excitement. At this moment, the others also reacted. This isn't he too powerful? Finishing Duan Mujinming with one move. Indeed. It seems like I've underestimated Lu Ming. In my opinion, Lu Ming should be at the late stage of the 9th grade Master Realm, or even the peak of the 9th grade Master Realm. With this strength, it shouldn't be a problem for him to win 5 times in a row. The newcomer king is the newcomer king. We've underestimated him. Many people's faces turned grave. Those who had belittled Lu Ming earlier felt their faces turn red. Is there anyone else who wants to come up and fight? Lu Ming did not even look at Duan Mujinming, who had just left the fighting ring. He continued to look around. I'll do it. Then, a young man jumped onto the fighting ring. Junior brother Lu Ming, please guide me along. The young man was at the late 9th grade Master Realm, but he did not dare to look down on Lu Ming anymore. He cupped his fists and said politely. Sure, please. This young man was using an iron rod, and when he waved it, it whistled through the air with extraordinary power. Lu Ming was slightly more polite to this young man. He used 10 moves before he blasted him off the fighting ring. 2 consecutive wins. Chapter 101. Chapter 101, Chapter 101, Sweeping all the way. On the eastern stands, Yao Tianyu's face darkened. The rest of the people's faces were also extremely ugly. Damn it! Lu Ming's cultivation has improved so much in just a few months. Senior brother Yao, you must kill him. Otherwise, he might really make it to the bronze rank after some time. The red-robed young man said. Why don't we let Zhang Hao go? A young man suggested. Yao Tianyu nodded and instructed. Zhang Hao, you go up. Don't hold back. Don't give Lu Ming a chance to admit defeat. On the side, a thin youth laughed coldly and said, Senior brother Yao, don't worry. I won't give him the chance to say the words I admit defeat. Then, like a ghost, his body flickered a few times and appeared on the fighting ring. Isn't this Zhang Hao? Zhang Hao from the Azure Dragon Hall. Yes, that's him. Why did he make a move? Lu Ming is in danger. A year ago, Zhang Hao had achieved 5 consecutive victories. However, for some reason, he has not participated in the Bronze Platform Challenge this year. Hence, his results were automatically cancelled. However, his ability is definitely above 5 consecutive victories. It seems like Yao Tianyu has made a move. Lu Ming has once offended Yao Tianyu, Let's see how Lu Ming will deal with this. As soon as Zhang Hao went on stage, there was a heated discussion. Did Yao Tianyu ask you to come up? Lu Ming looked at Zhang Hao. Just now, he had seen Zhang Hao's figure beside Yao Tianyu. He. Lu Ming, I wasn't around when we were at the Star Moon Tower the last time. Otherwise, you would have been a corpse by now. But it's not too late now. If you want to admit defeat, do it now. Wait a moment. I won't give you any chance. Zhang Hao laughed coldly. This sentence is exactly what I wanted to say to you. At that moment, the judge announced the start of the match. As soon as the judge finished speaking, Zhang Hao's figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already more than 20 meters away. Then, in a flash, he was in front of Lu Ming. His figure was as fast as a ghost. At this moment, Zhang Hao suddenly drew a long sword from his waist. This was a soft sword, one wrapped around Zhang Hao's waist. At this moment, it was suddenly pulled out, making it impossible to guard against. In addition, Zhang Hao's movement technique was extremely fast. He was like an assassin walking in the dark. Generally, even if one's cultivation was higher than his, they would still fall for his tricks. Unfortunately, Lu Ming was not an ordinary person. Lu Ming used the huge sword to perform the fastest move of the lustrous sword technique. In the past, he had used a thin sword to perform the lustrous sword technique, and the sword whistle was sharp and dense. Now, he used a giant sword. The speed was equally fast, but the sword whistle was like thunder. A head flew high into the air and then rolled down the fighting ring, leaving a headless corpse on the fighting ring. Blood splattered everywhere. One move after another, Zhang Hao, who had won 5 consecutive victories, was killed on the fighting ring. This time, even some geniuses on the bronze list looked serious. What a fast swordsmanship, and what powerful strength. This Lu Ming's swordsmanship cultivation is actually average. However, his explosive power is too strong, causing the speed of his swordsmanship to increase by a large margin. He killed Zhang Hao with a single slash. Could he have cultivated the body tempering Dao? The geniuses on the bronze list murmured to themselves. Lu Ming wins. The middle-aged judge announced. Then, he called for people to clean up the fighting ring and carry Zhang Hao's body away. On the eastern stands, Yao Tianyu slammed the armrest of his seat. True energy gushed out and shattered the armrest. If I'm not mistaken, Lu Ming should have cultivated the body tempering path. He Tai said. That's right. He must have cultivated the body tempering path. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such explosive power. However, he didn't cultivate the body tempering path last time. In just 3 months, his body can't be that strong. He Tai, if Lu Ming wins 8 matches in a row, go up and finish him off. Yao Tianyu ordered. N. He Tai nodded. At this moment, Lu Ming cast his gaze toward the east grandstand. Yao Tianyu, why did you send your men to their deaths? Don't worry, it'll be your turn soon. Lu Ming said in a clear voice. Provocation. This was a blatant provocation. Everyone's gaze shifted from Lu Ming to Yao Tianyu. They could not help but recall the grudge between Lu Ming and Yao Tianyu more than 3 months ago. This is getting interesting. Many people revealed looks of anticipation. This year's newcomer king was too domineering. He actually dared to speak to Yao Tianyu like that. Who knew what the consequences would be? Yao Tianyu laughed out of anger, the killing intent in his eyes unconcealed. He sneered, Lu Ming, I really hope that you can win 10 matches in a row and challenge me on the bronze rank. Then, I'll let you know what despair is. Yao Tianyu, you and your dog are really the same. Just now, Zhang Hao told me to admit defeat as soon as possible, otherwise I wouldn't have a chance. In the end, the facts have proven that he is just a useless person with a mouthful of nonsense. Now, you are the same. Birds of a feather really do flock together. Lu Ming pursed his lips. Umph. Lu Ming, let's see who's the one spouting nonsense. Yao Tianyu snorted coldly. His face darkened, but he did not say anything more. Lu Ming smiled faintly and looked around. Now, who is going to fight me? The scene fell silent. They looked at each other, and for a moment, no one went up. Lu Ming's combat strength was also revealed just now. Zhang Hao was killed by a single sword. He definitely had the strength to win 7 or even 8 times in a row. Who would go up and look for a beating? After a long while, a young man jumped onto the fighting ring. However, the young man was very polite. He cupped his fists and said, "Junior brother Lu Ming is a dragon among men. I know that I'm no match for you, but I can't help but want to spar with you. I hope that you'll show mercy." As the saying went, one should not slap a smiling face. Since he was being polite, Lu Ming smiled and said, "You're welcome. Let's have a spar then." The young man was not weak either. After the start of the competition, Lu Ming deliberately went easy on him. After exchanging more than 10 moves with him, the young man admitted defeat. Following that, there were no obstacles at all. 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins. In the end, he won 8 times in a row. The people behind him had no grudges with Lu Ming and were very polite to him. Therefore, Lu Ming did not unleash much of his strength and only won by a slight advantage. In particular, in the 8th battle, he fought against a young expert who had won 7 times in a row. Lu Ming even suppressed his cultivation and exchanged more than 30 moves with him before he won by a slight margin. This made many people think that Lu Ming's combat strength should be around 8 consecutive wins. Lu Ming smiled faintly. If he did not do this, how could he catch a big fish? He Tai, I have a rough idea of Lu Ming's abilities. You can make your move. Don't worry, senior brother Yao. I'll break all the bones in his body. He Tai smiled cruelly and went up the fighting ring. Chapter 102. Chapter 102, Fighting He Tai empty-handed. He Tai has made his move. It's really him. This is going to be interesting. He Tai's body is extremely tough and his close combat ability is extremely strong. Lu Ming seems to have cultivated the body tempering path as well. Between the two of them, who do you think will win? It's hard to say. It's been a few months since He Tai won 8 consecutive victories. He must be stronger now. However, Lu Ming, this year's newcomer king, has risen too quickly. It's really shocking. No one knows if he has any trump cards. Therefore, it's hard to say for sure what will happen in this battle. Yup. I didn't come here in vain. Everyone was staring at the fighting ring with great interest. Lu Ming had exceeded everyone's expectations. He was just a new disciple this year, but he had won 8 consecutive battles. As long as he won 2 more matches, he would be able to enter the bronze ranking. This was a rare sight in the history of the mystical sword section. What everyone was concerned about was whether he could win or not. Would He Tai be able to stop him? On the fighting ring, Lu Ming and He Tai stood opposite each other. Lu Ming, you were saved by Mulan last time. Let's see who can save you this time. He Tai revealed a cruel smile. Lu Ming touched his forehead speechlessly and said, "Look, here you go again. I said birds of a feather flock together. Did Yao Tianyu teach you this? Let me teach you. It's the right of the strong to say such words. The weak have no right to say such things." Ha ha ha. There was a burst of laughter from the surroundings. Lu Ming's words were obviously mocking Yao Tianyu. This was too interesting. You'll soon understand who's the strong one. He Tai's expression was extremely dark as he spoke. Oh, really? What you're good at is nothing more than your body and your fists. Then I'll use my fists to compete with you. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Then, He waved his hand and the giant sword disappeared. He was facing Hitai with his bare hands. This action caused the scene to fall into a clamor again. What? Lu Ming isn't using any weapons. He wants to fight Hitai with his fists. That's not wise. That's not wise. Lu Ming has underestimated his enemy. Isn't he using his own weakness against the enemy's strength? He's still young, so he's still too careless. I don't think so. Lu Ming doesn't seem like an unwise person. Haha, Lu Ming is really courting death. I didn't expect him to be so stupid to compete with Hitai in fist combat. Stupid, I thought he was a big shot. Beside Yao Tianyu, the red-robed young man and the others laughed mockingly. Yao Tianyu's eyes flickered, and his brows furrowed slightly, but he did not say anything. On the fighting ring, Hitai was ecstatic when he saw that Lu Ming had put away his sword. He shouted, "Lu Ming, you said it yourself. Don't go back on your word later." Initially, he was only 60 to 70% confident that he could defeat Lu Ming. However, now that Lu Ming had abandoned his combat sword, he immediately felt that he had 100% confidence that he could kill Lu Ming. How could he not be happy? Lu Ming, this was the typical rhythm of seeking death. Don't worry. Lu Ming, never go back on my word. But don't admit defeat later. Lu Ming said with an inexplicable smile on his lips. Don't worry. If I admit defeat today, I'll roll down from here. Hitai said immediately, as if he was afraid that Lu Ming would go back on his words. However, in the stands, Yao Tianyu's brows furrowed even more. He did not know why, but when he saw Lu Ming's calm and composed expression, the bad feeling in his heart grew stronger. The judge announced the start of the match. Haha, take this. Hitai roared, his muscles bulging. There was a layer of faint black light on his skin, making his muscles look like pieces of black iron. Hitai looked like a steel monster. Hitai strode forward, each step covering a distance of 10 meters. Every step he took on the fighting ring made a violent boom. Within a few breaths, Hitai was in front of Lu Ming. His huge fist was aimed at Lu Ming's head, and a cold smile hung on his face. At this moment, Lu Ming threw a punch at Hitai's fist. Their fists collided with each other, creating a loud boom. Everyone's heart skipped a beat as they stared at the two of them. Can Lu Ming withstand it? However, they immediately knew the answer. A muscular figure was forced back 5 to 6 steps before he could stabilize himself. The figure was Hitai while Lu Ming's body did not even shake. Hiss hiss hiss. Gasps of shock could be heard. The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. Almost everyone's mouths were wide open, big enough to stuff a duck egg in. Their eyes were so wide that they almost burst. This was too unbelievable. Lu Ming had abandoned his weapon and used his fist against Hitai's fist. He had actually forced Hitai to retreat 5 to 6 steps with one punch. Could it be that Lu Ming also cultivated fist techniques? Could it be that Lu Ming's physical body was stronger than Hitai's? However, that was impossible. He had never heard of Lu Ming cultivating the path of body tempering. Otherwise, he would not have been in such a sorry state more than 3 months ago. However, how could his physical body be cultivated to such a level in just over 3 months? Unless they had obtained some heavenly treasure. Arg! Lu Ming, I'm going to kill you. Hitai was knocked back by Lu Ming's punch. Looking at the shocked gazes around him, he felt extremely humiliated and hated Lu Ming to the core. He let out an angry roar, put his hands on his waist, and put on a pair of metal boxing gloves. Then, he rushed toward Lu Ming. In the process of charging out, his bloodline burst out. The level 4 giant bear bloodline had increased his strength by another 40%. Then I'll play with you. The corners of Lu Ming's lips had been curled into an apathetic smile the entire time. With a single thought, his strength increased by a few points and he threw a punch at Hitai. using his bare hands against Hitai's spirit weapon gloves. Their fists collided for the second time. An even more violent explosion was heard. Then, a powerful force burst out from the place where the two fists hit. The force was like a gale, sweeping in all directions. Some of the disciples who were closer were almost swept up by the wind. "Be careful! It was noisy." The disciples all used their cultivation to block the wind. On the fighting ring, Lu Ming and Hitai's bodies swayed slightly. They were equally matched. He blocked it. Lu Ming blocked it again. Unbelievable. Lu Ming didn't even activate his blood meridian and he's empty-handed, while Hitai has already activated his blood meridian and is wearing a spirit weapon glove. He's too powerful. Lu Ming is too powerful. As long as he can hold on for 2 minutes and wait for Hitai's blood meridian power to be exhausted, he'll definitely win. Not bad, let's do it again. Lu Ming's calm voice was heard. Violent bare fist, go to hell. Hitai roared and punched out again. The shock in his heart was stronger than anyone else's. He knew that he had to end the battle as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would really be defeated in 2 minutes. Hitai exploded with all his strength. Lu Ming threw another punch. This time, he used another portion of his strength. In the end, Hitai-chan staggered backward. Part 5 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.